If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 21, Beast of the Ishiki Family. Indra. When they saw Masa's strong body bathed in electricity, everyone subconsciously muttered the name of the strongest warrior among the Devas in Hindu mythology. At the same time, all the important members and researchers of the Ishiki family watched the data that came from Masa's physical ability, which made all of them gasp. This physical ability? No. His speed is more ridiculous. Isn't he the thunder itself? Crack. Tear. Watching Masa, who could punch through a wall made from metal, all of them felt their bodies were weak. If that punch was hit against the body of a human, what would happen? Frankly, there were many magic that reinforced physical ability, such as making one's body harder to protect oneself from a bullet or other firearms, but for a better effect, a magician usually wore armor all over their bodies. Or, they might create a barrier like the Magician of the Tens, a magician born from the 10th Research Institute, which focused on wide area magic that generated virtual structures in space as a defensive countermeasure to heavy firepower. There were other magics that increased attack power through a weight type of magic. Yet, there was only Masa, who could use electricity to strengthen his body to the superhuman level. At that moment, they felt like they had seen a manga character who had become stronger through the power of electricity. If Masa had to give a better example, at this moment, he would be able to recreate the famous jutsu of Reikage in the world of Naruto. Along with this new magic and the lightning, which was the famous instant reaction magic of the Ishiki family, there was no doubt that Masa's power would increase dramatically, or rather, he might have become the fastest and strongest magician in the world. Yet, compared to all of that, the speed that Masa gained from this new magic was crazy. While it was hard to say who was the fastest magician, according to certain data that the author had read from the novel, the famous child prodigy of the Chiba Naotsugu, using a speed type of magic, was capable of reaching speeds up to 120 kph. This was probably the limit and probably the fastest speed a magician could reach. Yet, Masa's speed was double at ease. Masa, try to run as fast as possible. Okay, I will try. Everyone was curious at how fast Masa could be, and as expected, when they saw his real speed, all of them could only feel even weaker. Mach 3. Which means 3 times the speed of sound. Boom. 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 The powerful magic energy that came from his body somehow spread in every direction, causing those magicians to feel powerful magic was being cast in this country. This direction is. In Tokyo, Shiba Tatsuya stared at the direction of the west with a solemn expression. Ani-sama. Miyuki Shiba also reacted the same way and looked in the direction of the west, as she felt an intense, prickly aura like electricity coming from the west of Japan. This direction. Kanazawa. Tatsuya thought for a moment about a magician family that had a high mastery over electricity-related magic. Ishiki family. Do you think that is the blue beast of the Ishiki family? There is a high chance. That young man is a beast, after all. In a certain house hidden within Nagano, a beautiful, mature woman had a solemn expression as she looked in the direction of Kanazawa. Still, her expression became playful when she heard her butler's words. Not a monster. There is a huge difference between a monster and a beast. You are right. Yeah, the young man from the Ishiki family might be amazing, but compared to the monster within their family, there was still a distance, yet there was no doubt they were cornered about this new magic that made their bodies feel prickly as if being electrocuted by electricity. Yet, even if the reaction of this magic was felt by many people in the country, no one within the Ishiki family cared since Masa was strong, and even if this magic allowed him to become so fast, it wasn't a strategic type of a magic which might be comparable to the nuclear warhead, so there was no need for them to announce this magic. Masanai-sama is amazing. Hiromi's eyes were full of stars. Similarly, Eri reacted the same way, her eyes were full of stars, and she was watching the data that came from Masa's speed. Still, when Masa returned, his clothes had already burnt into ashes, and he was practically naked as his clothes were unable to handle the friction that came from his speed. Yet, while Masa didn't care about being seen naked as there was nothing embarrassing, and he was even proud of his magic, all of them couldn't remain the same, especially when there were still many women around. Masa, put on your clothes. However, there was no doubt that their eyes naturally drew toward the direction of his lower body, which made all of them gasp since, identical to his speed, his size was even more impressive. Still, Masa knew that due to this magic, his name would even become famous, and he might be targeted by another country or even others, but it didn't matter since what he gained wasn't the name of the destroyer but the fastest magician. Can you use this magic? Sorry, we can't. While Masa had given them detailed information about this new magic, the members of the Ishiki family couldn't use it, especially since the calculation needed to perform this magic was ridiculously high and, as he had said before, a body was a sensitive object. One mistake in their magic would cause a heavy injury that might even cause them to lose their ability to perform magic or even death. Frankly, inwardly, they thought Masa was a specialized born magician, a magician that could only use a certain magic, an existence that was looked down on instead of being looked up to. Yet, his mastery over all other types of magic was excellent and even over the top, which made him into the existence of a perfect magician. Yes, if Tatsuya was known as a failure, then Masa was known as perfect since he didn't have any weaknesses, whether it was his defense, attack, speed, reaction time, amount of psion, or anything else, everything was at the top of the top. If Tatsuya was a demon king in the Ice-Sky world, then Masa would be the hero. This is probably how to compare the two. Still, besides showing his new magic, there was something that he was planning to do and wanted to show his father and uncle. You really have grown. Masa's father looked at his son with a sigh, wondering what kind of luck had made his son so talented. By the way, have you named this magic? Do I have to? Of course. 2x. A name was necessary for magic, and even if they didn't plan to announce the details of Masa's magic, it was still necessary to tell the effect of Masa's magic on the country and magic association. Masa knew that, so he thought for a moment and said, let's name it Mercury. Mercury. 2x. The two murmured this title and nodded, thinking that Masa used the name of a Roman god, the god of the speed of the Roman myth, which suited quite well, and frankly, like their innate magic lightning, this name could also be used to deceive others. Still, his new magic wasn't the only thing that he wanted to show everyone. Uncle, father, there is something that I want to show the two of you. What is it? 2x. The two of them knew that Masa must have a new plan, and this plan, without a doubt, would benefit their family. Masa took out a document that he had made and his plan to make the Ishiki family even stronger. Still, when the two saw the title of his plan, they both felt confused. Ishiki Network. Yes, this was his new plan, the plan to make his family become even stronger. Chapter 22, The Ishiki Network. Ishiki Network. This was the plan that Masa had thought of to make the Ishiki family become stronger, and at the same time, this plan was the reason why he had made his family enter a cybersecurity field of business and also had them master technology-related magic, which he had developed. This plan is 2x. Whether his uncle or father, the two of them were shocked, yet their expression was full of excitement. What is the Ishiki Network? It is a brainwave network formed between the magicians of the Ishiki family. Now, what is a brainwave network? It might be a little complicated, but in simple terms, Masa wanted to connect all the Ishiki family into one with a communication network, which could be used for many things. Yes, his main purpose in creating this network was to increase the calculating ability of the magicians of the Ishiki family, connecting their minds to the supercomputer to increase their power. Many of the magic that Masa had developed was amazing, and all of them were specially created for the Ishiki family magicians. They focused on bioelectricity-related magic. Unfortunately, not all the magicians of the Ishiki family had good computing ability within their brains or had their own weaknesses, so this network was created to solve that problem. Then, what about those with good computing ability? Would the existence of this network become a liability for them? No, instead, it would make them even stronger as their computing ability would become even stronger. Moreover, this network would allow them to share their experience to use their magic more efficiently. At the same time, this network also allowed the magicians of the Ishiki family to communicate telepathically, like a radio. Lastly, this network allows the storage of memories in the network as backup or distribution through every magician of the Ishiki family in the network. This was a huge, grand plan created by Masa from the beginning when he started to focus on the development of his magic in terms of electricity and cyber-related issues. Everything he built was for this. Yes, Masa knew that his power was limited, and it was impossible for him to match Tatsuya, but unlike Tatsuya, he wasn't alone, so he had been planning to create this network so he and everyone in the Ishiki family could become more powerful. If all of them dared to become bolder, the Ishiki family could even include all the magicians of the magicians created at the first research institute, where their family originated from, to join this network and turn themselves into administrators. Frankly, Masa thought that this plan would take a long time to create, but as his IQ had become 3 times better due to the other Masa, his plan could be developed faster. At the same time, this plan could turn all the magicians of the Ishiki family into an immortal. Yes, immortal. It wasn't that their bodies became unbreakable or they wouldn't become old, but their minds could be transferred into data inside the network and lived within the network, so even if their bodies were broken, their souls remained within the network. If Masa made a simple example, it would be like transferring those who had died to the virtual world, like the VMorg game in fiction. In that network, all the magicians who were related to the Ishiki family would live forever. At the same time, they might also become the god of this world as, in the future, they would be able to control all the electrical devices in this world. Probably, their existence would be like an evil AI whose purpose was to dominate the world. Still, while his words might be exaggerated and he didn't even plan to dominate the world, if Masa wished to, with this network, everything that he mentioned above would have been possible. Nevertheless, the main purpose of this network was to increase the computing ability of the Ishiki family magician, communicate, and share their knowledge. At the same time, Masa also wondered whether it was possible for the other Masa to use this network as this network was connected to him. If possible, then the existence of this network would become more important than he had imagined, as all of Masa's computing capability would be similar to a supercomputer or more. Or, rather, by the development of this network, all of them would have an advanced artificial intelligence like a helper inside their minds that could help them develop techniques, abilities, magic, or many others. Nevertheless, Masa's uncle and father sucked in a deep breath and never thought that Masa would make such a plan, yet, why did they become even more excited? Yes, Masa didn't seek power for himself but for his family, showing his care and love toward all of them. He might be powerful, but even so, he had never forgotten the others and even wished for them to become stronger like him. So, naturally, their answer to this plan was obvious. Let's do it. 2x. This plan might be crazy, but there was a high chance for this plan to be successful. Moreover, with their mastery over cyber and electrical mastery, along with Masa's mind, anything was possible. Rather, it was because they were the magicians of the Ishiki family that this network was possible. Probably, in the future, while it might not be possible for the magicians of the Ishiki family to master the Mercury as well as Masa's, all of them should be able to learn this magic, becoming the most powerful magician family in the world. Still, the question was, who would become the administrator? Masa, be the master of this network. Are you sure, uncle? Masa looked at his uncle in surprise. Yes. Masa's uncle looked at him and said, or rather, you will become the future patriarch of the Ishiki family. Are you sure? What about your Taiki Nii, OC, the son of the head of the Ishiki family? It's fine. You are far better. Or rather, it has to be you. If it was someone else, Masa's uncle wouldn't believe that they could control this network. This network was an amazing thing, and it would strengthen all the magicians of the Ishiki family. It would greatly enhance their strength, yet for Masa, it didn't bring him much of a benefit since, without this network, his computing capability was already comparable to a supercomputer. So, the only person that Masa's uncle believed wouldn't mess up this network was Masa, who was the strongest. He didn't even believe his son or daughter would be able to control this powerful network. Moreover, as there would be secret knowledge, including their secret magics, the one who could develop all of those magics and the creator of this plan, Masa, was no doubt, should have the highest authority within this network. Still, if there was a problem. Money, hey. This would be a private project of the Ishiki family, and naturally, all the costs would be borne by the Ishiki family. While their family might not be bad in terms of wealth, especially when they almost monopolized the cybersecurity market within this country and even Asia Pacific, the cost that was needed to realize this project was immense. I will try to develop new magic to make money. What kind? 2x. The two became curious, wondering what kind of new magic Masa would develop to make money. Well, a hair restoration? A beauty. Using bioelectricity magic, Masa thought that it should be possible to make magic that allowed him to restore the hair of someone or keep someone's beauty. Heck, he might even try to become a treasure hunter by using electroreception, too. Rather, Masa thought about all the unique formulas in the world of DXD that he could use to make money in this world. Still, at the same time, he didn't forget that he had to develop the Pika Pika no Mi, which made him think that he would be busy. Yet, there was no doubt his days would be fun. Nevertheless, the two brothers looked at Masa in disbelief before they sighed, thinking that anything was possible for this guy. Oh, by the way, uncle, father, can I go to the first high school? At 2x. Dash. Ahem, I know that you don't like an info dump, but then, information is necessary. Still, to erase that trouble, then I can only add more words, but, you know, I can't always have an inspiration, right? Nevertheless, chapter 19 is probably the only info dump chapter on this arc, and for the rest, they will be good, so please enjoy. As for those who are unfamiliar with the manga, try to watch the story or read it since it is interesting, and I also try to write it in a way that those who have never known about this story understand. Lastly, manga's knowledge is necessary as the power of technology can't be underestimated, including this Ishiki network. Thank you. Chapter 23, Friends. The fastest magic in the world. 3 Mach. Ichijo Masaki and Kichijo looked at their best friend, Iro Masa, who was lying on Masaki's bed speechlessly, wondering how this bastard, who often played around and tricked them, could have such an amazing title all of a sudden. Damn it, don't eat on the top of my bed. By the way, when did you start to develop your new magic, Mercury, Masa? While Masaki was annoyed at Masa, who ate at the top of his bed, Kichijoji Shinkuro was more concerned about when Masa developed his magic. Still, when they saw the fastest magician alive eating the cookie prepared by Masaki's mother lazily, they had to admit that they really couldn't believe this news. Why the heck did this guy develop such magic all of a sudden? The three of them had been together for so long, and they were childhood friends. Moreover, due to the attack on Sado Island, their relationship was stronger than ever. Invasion of Sado. The event occurred in August 2092 when the new Soviet Union invaded Sado, Japan. They attacked the facility where Kichijoji Shinkuro's parents worked, and during the event, Masaki and Masa went with Masaki's father to join the battle, and they annihilated the enemy with rupture. Due to this relationship, the three of them have a firm comradeship and have been together till now. So, there was no doubt when the announcement of Masa's new magic was heard by the two, they couldn't contain their surprise and quickly questioned him. While Masa didn't say the details of the magic, he confirmed that this magic was real and he had become the fastest magician alive. I have been thinking about developing that magic for a while, and it has only been successful now. Congratulations! Still, there was no doubt that Kichijoji congratulated Masa with a smile, happy that his friend had succeeded, and Masaki could only sigh when he was ignored. But why now? Somehow, they wondered whether there was a reason why Masa would develop such magic now, all of the time. To be honest, they were in the 3rd year of middle school, and their priority should be the entrance exam to enter the magic high school, which would be held shortly, instead of developing a new magic. Is it because of your family's new venture? Kichijoji came to such a conclusion, especially when he knew that Masa's family was ready to start a new business. To be honest, the magician family, especially the one at the top, wasn't poor, but Masa's family was on a different level, especially when it had monopolized the market of cybersecurity. More importantly, it was also about developing itself into cloud computing, enterprising software, business software, consulting, AI, blockchain, internet service, telecommunication, etc. Heck, Masaki and Kichijoji even heard that the Ishiki family was about to create a beauty business, which made them speechless. Regardless, everyone was clear about the Ishiki family's magic, which gave them a high expertise in cyber, network, and technology, which made this family an important asset of the country. Yet, there was no doubt that this also brought envy from many. Masaki and Kichijoji were okay since one was the heir of the Ichijo family, a member of the 10 master clans, and the other was a genius who had discovered the cardinal code. However, not many magicians lived well since not everyone had a great ability, and most of them couldn't even use magic. Instead, many also lost their abilities as they grew older. For such people, they had no future, and they also didn't have any specialties. Yet, many magicians who could use magic or a large family magician also didn't have much money since their only income came from taking a dangerous job such as being a soldier or bodyguard. So, the Ishiki family, who could make a lot of money from their magic, brought envy to many. Not only the magicians but also normal people were the same. More importantly, those with high financial capability also didn't like this family, too, since their business was private instead of public. Yes, instead of sharing the money with everyone, the Ishiki family made the business private, which meant it was monopolized by their family. Previously, because of this, Masa and the Ishiki family knew that they had to admit their business into cybersecurity, so no one could say anything, and everyone also knew the excellence of this family in terms of cybersecurity. Yet, once their business touched another field, it would be different since it would affect the profits of the others. After all, the market was limited, and no one had the confidence to fight against the capability of the Ishiki family in these fields. So, if there was a way to stop the Ishiki family, it was only by force. By hiring killers or others, they would cause trouble or kidnap their people to make this family bow down. With all of those thoughts, the only reason why Masa and the Ishiki family developed new magic was only one: to be a deterrent. It was like how a country would develop a nuclear bomb to protect themselves and be taken by others seriously. The announcement of the Ishiki family of this new magic known as Mercury was to become the deterrent to the world that their family wasn't something that they could mess with. Mach 3. If one was confident, could they do anything before that speed? Because of that, Masaki and Kizaru, who had made such a conclusion, fell in silence and didn't say anything to Masa since this guy must have been working hard. Don't look at me like that. If you are worried about me, why don't you two develop a strategic type of magic so everyone's attention won't be on me all the time? 2x. Do you think it is easy to develop a strategic type of magic? Yet, whether it was Masaki or Kizaru, they didn't refuse him since they knew that having attention on Masa all the time was tough, and if they wanted to help him, they should also show their excellence, and naturally, creating the strategic type of magic was the best way. At the same time, the two of them didn't want to lose to Masa. If you two are together, I think it is possible, Masa said as he ate Masaki's mama's cookie, thinking that it was so good that he wanted to bring Masaki's mama with him to Tokyo when he entered the first high school. Fortunately, Masaki didn't have mind-reading magic, or else this guy would have killed this bastard. Still, whether Masaki or Kizaru felt a bit happy and shy when they heard Masa's confirmation toward them since they knew well that compared to Masa, their excellence was a bit lower, and if they wanted to match him, they had to work together. Yet, how could they not think so? Masa was not only a powerful magician and researcher, but he was also a tough businessman. If there was a reason why the Ishiki family could become the wealthiest magician family, it was all due to Masa. Well, even if the Ishiki family was the wealthiest magician family, there was still a distance compared to other real, hidden wealthy families in this country and the world. But since you said so, you must have imagined what kind of magic Masaki can use, right, Masa? Considering their previous conversation, Kizaru knew that Masa must have thought about what kind of strategic magic could be used by Masaki. Masaki didn't say anything, and he didn't hide the idea of becoming a strategic type of magician as he could protect his family, especially from the threat of another country. The Ichijo are famous for their magic that controls the liquid. We can use the rupture, your family's specialty magic, as a basis to develop a strategic type of magic. Like the Ishiki family with its nerve disruption and lightning, the Ichijo family also had their specialty magic, which was known as rupture, a magic that evaporated all liquids within an object. Yes, as the magician of the one, the Ichijo family also had magic that directly interfered with living organisms. However, unlike the Ishiki family's focus on bioelectricity, the Ichijo family's focus was on body liquid. With their magic rupture, anything with liquids in their bodies, whether it was a machine or a living being, could all be exploded by the magician of the Ichijo family. So, for such a family, what kind of strategic magic was suitable? Use the sea and create a steam explosion. This was the answer that Masa came up with. Masaki and Kizaru fell into a daze and thought about the possibility of this magic. Was it possible? Naturally. But in reality, it wasn't so easy. If it was just a simple explosion, then it would have been easy for Masaki to do it, but to make a steam explosion comparable to a nuclear bomb, then it would have been a different matter. We're still young, so don't bother to think too much about it. Our focus should be on the entrance exam. Masaki and Kizaru nodded, but then, with Masa's words, they knew which focus of research they should develop during their high school life. I wonder how high school is. I don't think there is a huge difference between middle school and high school. What do you think, Masa? I think there will be a lot of cute girls. 2x. If this friend of theirs wasn't so frivolous, it would be perfect, they thought. Suddenly, the door of Masaki's room opened, which startled the three of them. Akane, what are you doing? Masaki looked at his little sister angrily, who startled all of them. Yet, Masaki's little sister ignored her older brother and looked at Masa with a panic. Masa nii, are you going to the first high school? 2x. Yet, Masaki and Kichijuji were also dumbfounded. Masa, what the hell is going on? 2x. Masa thought that his life in this world was as peaceful as ever. Chapter 24, Nevertheless, his opinion won't change. Yes, Masa had decided to enter the first high school. After a long thought, he decided to attend the high school where the protagonist, Tatsuya Shiba, would be. Masa knew that this was a reckless decision, especially when he knew that Tatsuya's lack of emotion, and because of that, instead of trust, care, and comradeship when one approached Tatsuya, he would be in malice, doubt, and other negative feelings toward that person. For someone with such a flawed emotion, it was impossible for him to understand friendship, family, and love, like a shounen manga character. No, it was impossible for Tatsuya to feel such a feeling, at least for now. So, why? If Masa had to say, it was because he didn't feel that he could have any real improvements if he stayed in the third high school, the place where he was supposed to learn. Yes, Tatsuya might be dangerous, and he had a power that was enough to destroy this world. Yet, Tatsuya wasn't Masa's opponent. The improvement that Masa gained from other masses probably made him the strongest man in the world. Still, while he was the most powerful, it didn't mean he was omnipotent, since Tatsuya's magic could probably defeat him, but before Tatsuya used his magic, he could defeat Tatsuya first. At the same time, if the conflict between the two really happened, then Masa would devour Tatsuya. Yes, frankly, it didn't matter whether Masa would become Tatsuya's enemy or friend, but no matter what, the fastest way to become stronger and gain everything was to go to Tokyo, join the first high school, and meet Tatsuya. Why? Why did you decide to go to the first high school? Yet, Masaki and Kichijuji couldn't understand Masa's decision. Even Akane, Masaki's little sister, looked at Masa tearfully, wondering why he had made such a decision. The home of the Ishiki family was in Kanazawa, and many of its businesses were also located in this city. Or, rather, Kanazawa, this city was their headquarters. More importantly, Masa's expertise, while it might seem weird, has always been in combat. Yes, whether it was Masaki or Kichijuji, the two had never won against Masa, as this guy was too fast. So fast that before they could even do anything, they had been defeated by Masa. If Masa wanted to improve his fighting ability as a magician, then there was no doubt the third high school would be the best choice, as its motto was Warlike Third High. Meanwhile, while the first high school was a great school, it was located in Tokyo, which was outside the territory of the Ishiki family. It was an area outside that was impossible to control, which meant that if Masa studied in that place, he would be in danger as there was a lack of security. More importantly, everyone was clear that Masa was a genius in business and network-related fields, and was also an important individual within the Ishiki family, which was a perfect kidnapping target. While Masaki and Kichijuji never thought that anyone could defeat this guy, they believed that it was better to be prepared than to be sorry, since being a magician meant that one wasn't omnipotent. Even a strategic type of magician, a magician whose magic was comparable to a nuclear explosion, could die. Then, naturally, the same thing could happen to Masa. At the same time, what was the point of attending the first high school? Why do I go to Tokyo? Well, it's for money, since I can make more money there. 3x. Whether Masaki, Kichijuji, or Akane, they were all speechless when they heard Masa's answer, since this guy was really greedy for money. However, before they were able to complain, Masa said, "Still, if I have to say, it will be a little boring to go to the third high school." He looked at Masaki and Kichijuji and said, "Instead of the three of us fighting against the small fries together, it is more interesting to fight you two together." 9 schools competition. Even if Masa didn't make it clear, he wanted to try to fight the combination of Masaki and Kichijuji in the 9 schools competition, a nationwide annual magic tournament for the 9 national magic university-affiliated high schools, and it is one of the biggest magic-related events in Japan. If Masa joined the third high school, then there was no doubt that he would team up with Masaki and Kichijuji, but in the case he entered the first high school, then he would compete with Masaki and Kichijuji, which he thought was more interesting. As for staying in the third high school and fighting Tatsuya, Masa was too lazy to do that, since he felt Tatsuya's existence was like a glitch, especially when he knew Tatsuya's specialty magic, regrowth, which allowed Tatsuya to restore his previous unharmed status. At the same time, while he knew that this might be a crime, he wanted to learn all the magic from the powerful magician families. The power of Jake no Mi gave him a chance to do all of that, and if he wanted to get all of that magic, the only way for him to do that was to go to the first high school, which was the location where all of the problems existed, and when the problem existed, the opportunity would appear. Yet, there was no doubt that Masa felt that he had changed. In the past, he would have thought of going to the third high school for a peaceful life, yet considering his need to become even stronger, especially when all the other masses also needed him, he felt that he couldn't stay shy away from the danger. More importantly, he couldn't die anyway, so there was nothing to worry about. Lastly, it definitely had nothing to do with the fact that he was just curious about the heroines, okay? Really? Yet, there was no doubt while Kizaru felt conflicted, Masaki said, I won't lose, Masa. Yeah, I can't wait for that time. You two can say all you want, but you need to enter the high school, okay? Kizaru sighed and said, if you two can't be accepted, then won't it be embarrassing? Masa and Masaki only snorted at Kizaru's words since neither of them would be accepted in their respective high schools, so who could enter? This might sound like a brag, no, it was a brag, but in reality, who could match the two of them in terms of combat among high school students? Masaki thought that in his life, Masa was his only rival, no one else. Yet, Masa, who knew some of the stories of this world, knew that this world was far from calm, and there were many troubles that he felt might come in his direction later. However, Masa's problems hadn't ended. Masa and I. Akane looked at Masa with tears and asked, do you really have to go to the first high school? Akane. Masaki looked at his little sister with a complicated gaze, and Kizaru looked at Masa with dead fish-like eyes. How could they not be? How old was Akane? Yet, they knew their friend well, and what Akane felt was just one-sided, as Masa didn't have an interest in a little girl. I am sorry, Akane, but I have to go. Masa stood up from the bed and patted Akane's head softly. But it isn't like we can't meet each other, right? I can go back over the weekend, and if you want, you can also visit Tokyo. Akane was surprised, then looked at Masa with a blush. See, can I visit you, Masa and I? Why not? Masa treated Akane like his own little sister, too, especially when Akane was about the same age as his own little sister, Hiromi. Still, watching Akane's shy yet happy expression, Masa wondered whether this world's morality was conservative. Nevertheless, Masa didn't plan to stay any longer since he had to prepare for many things, whether it was his plan in Tokyo or the development of his bioelectricity and Pika Pika no Mi. More importantly, it was a bit boring to stay at Masaki's home since this guy didn't have a game console. Yes, he knew that he might appear childish since instead of thinking about getting stronger or having adult fun, he was more interested in playing a game. However, how old was he? He was just in his third year of middle school, okay? He was just a boy. Yet, even if he was a boy, a girl of his age matured early, and his childhood friend, who learned that he would go to the first high school instead of the third high school, came to him with teary eyes as she looked at him mixed of emotions. While Masa felt awkward by her expression, the girl asked the question that had bothered her for so long in a straightforward manner. Masa. Calling his name softly, Ishiki stared at Masa and asked, as she tried to hold her sadness, do you have to go to the first high school? By the way, this arc won't be long, and on Friday, you should see him return to the One Piece, but if you don't want to wait, check the note below. Chapter 25, Different Plot. Eri. Masa looked at his childhood friend and also his cousin, Ishiki. Still, he could tell that she wasn't alone since her best friend, Kanushiori, was also there to accompany her, but when Eri came to face him, Shiori didn't follow and stayed out, but stayed nearby as she was worried and wished to listen to their conversation. Still, instead of thinking about Shiori, Masa looked at Eri, thinking about their relationship from the beginning until now. Due to their similar age, the two of them had been practically inseparable. No, it was just Eri who was too sticky for him, and Masa felt like he needed to take care of her, especially when her personality was a little awkward. Not only was she the daughter of the head of the Ishiki family, one of the strongest magician families in this country, but she was also half foreigner. While it wasn't allowed for a magician to leave their country of origin, there were many special cases when a magician was allowed to leave, such as a student exchange, a job, a research, military, and even being an illegal immigrant. Yup, even a magician could become an illegal immigrant and leave their country of origin. As for why it happened, it was because those magicians couldn't see the future in their country of origin, and many of them were treated worse than livestock, so the only way for them to live a better life was to leave for another country. Fortunately, it was quite easy for a magician to be neutralized in another country, especially when the number of magicians was so low, and they were an important asset for a country, as in this world, a magician equaled a weapon. Nevertheless, how did an international marriage happen between a magician? As a magician was an important asset for a country, shouldn't they be kept away from another country? In the past, that might have been the case since many magicians were treated as secret weapons, and it was impossible for another country to steal their secrets, right? Yet, now, it is different. To enrich, strengthen, and develop a better magician, international marriages between allied nations were encouraged. If Masa had to be rude, this marriage would be so-called crossbreeding, where two different species were hoped to create a new and better descendant. For the majority, this might seem inhumane, yet a feeling was a complicated problem, so as long as the two people were happy, even if the method was weird, it should be okay, right? Nevertheless, Eri was the child of an international marriage, and her mother was a foreigner. While the adults might not think too much, the children were different. Eri was different, so it was natural for the children to avoid her even if everyone had started to respect everyone's differences. In reality, it was hard to accept others for being different. Moreover, once again, due to her family status, her parents and family were worried that some people would approach her with bad intentions, so that was the reason why Eri and Masa had been stuck together. If it was Masa, everyone would believe in him, especially when he was so cunning and powerful. Eri didn't hate Masa, so she had always been by his side. Yet, now, they would be separated again. Yes, I will go to the first high school. It's always like this. Eri wanted to cry somehow, but she forced herself to become stronger. It was like in the past when Masa decided to join the Ichijo family to fight in the invasion of Sato, while she didn't want him to join since she didn't want him to be in danger, he still joined. When Masa made his decision, no one could stop him, and he used sophistry to make people follow him and agree with him. Eri knew that she also couldn't win against him, and this time, once again, she knew that she couldn't stop him. This time, they would be separated. Masa would be in Tokyo, and Eri would be in Kanazawa. Or, that's what Masa would think so, unless... I will go to Tokyo with you, too. First high school, right? I will join that school with you. Hey! While Kanushiori, who eavesdropped on their conversation, was stunned since she didn't expect Eri to make such a conclusion, Masa was surprised, but he didn't stop her since, frankly, it was all fine even if Eri wanted to follow him. Are you sure, Eri? Yeah. Eri nodded. I will talk to my parents, or do you have a problem with me joining you at the first high school? Are you going to seduce more girls there? What do you think I am? Masa was speechless, but even if that was the truth, there was something that he should say and shouldn't say. But what are your friends over there? She looks so worried, you know. Eri turned and saw Shiori, who was also staring at her. The two girls stared at each other and felt awkward since Eri chose her love instead of her best friend. I will join the first high school, too. Somehow, Shiori, who knew that she couldn't hide anymore, came out and expressed her thoughts. Hey? Really? That's good. Are you sure, Shiori? Masa looked at Shiori, the talented girl that he found during Eri's fencing competition. Similar to Eri, Shiori was also quite awkward with her emotions, and she couldn't show much of her expression, yet even so, she was a sweet and cute girl with short, wavy purple hair. Yet, inwardly, Masa thought that girls really grew fast. In the past, the two of them were flat, yet now, the two of them had grown up and had a womanly charm that was impossible to hide. If Masa was an average harem protagonist, he might not have realized the feelings of the two girls until so long ago, but he wasn't. Still, this wasn't the time, and he wasn't such a thirsty man who would jump at any charming woman. It was like the case when he saw Masaki's mother and Eri's mother, who was also his auntie. Even if they were lovely, he did nothing, respecting them as his elder. Nevertheless, he wondered whether it was okay for the two of them to join the first high school instead of the third high school. After all, if such a thing happened, then there was no doubt that the plot would change, and there wouldn't be the story of the Mahuka Kao Kao no Yua to Ci. Well, it doesn't really matter, he thought. It was just a spin-off story, and frankly, except for Tatsuya, Masa had never thought anyone in this world could be his match, especially when he could control people to become his most loyal servant. So, somehow, this problem was solved? Yet, while Masa didn't think too much, even if Eri went to join him at the first high school, the girl thought differently since, this way, she would be living with Masa in Tokyo. Not with their parents, family, or anyone else, only the two of them. When Eri had such a thought, her expression was that of a shy girl, thinking that their life would be like a newlywed, which made her blush red. What's wrong, Eri? And nothing. Yet, Shiori only sighed inwardly as she watched the two with a helpless smile. Nevertheless, when Eri expressed her thoughts about following Masa to Tokyo, her father thought differently. No, you can't. Hey? Why? Even Masa was surprised by his uncle's decision not to allow Eri to go to Tokyo. Why didn't the head of the Ishiki family, or Eri's father, allow Eri to follow Masa? Because he knew well that Masa was a bad boy. In an environment where there was a lack of supervision from parents and family, in the case of Masa and Eri, they stayed together, what would happen? As a father, he didn't dare to think about it. Yes, the two might be cousins, but in this country, a cousin is allowed to marry. If Masa couldn't hold on, and Eri couldn't refuse and happily accept, then... Ugh! While Masa's uncle had prepared himself, he felt his heart was hurt. More importantly, he didn't want to be separated from his daughter so early. Yet. It's a matter of a politic. Kanazawa is our hometown, after all, and we're a magician of the one who is also a member of the Kanazawa Magic Science Institute. More importantly, you are my daughter, so how can I send you to Tokyo? Eri opened her lips and couldn't say anything since she knew that as the daughter of the head of the Ishiki family, she had a duty that she had to perform. Then, why Masa can go? He is from the Iro family, after all. Yes, if there was a reason why no one stopped him from going to the first high school, it was because Masa was from the Iro family. While he was still part of the Ishiki family, he wasn't within the main line, and he had more freedom than Eri. Yet, Masa knew that was the reason why his uncle refused Eri's. Still, while Masa wanted to say something, his uncle beat him first. To be honest, I know that it might seem early, but before you two enter a high school, there is something that I want to talk about with you two. 2x. Masa and Eri looked at his uncle, her father, in confusion. Masa, can you take care of Eri as your fiancé? Masa and Eri were dumbfounded, and naturally, the two looked at each other, but while Eri blushed shyly, he felt at a loss. Uncle, we... Yes, we have decided to engage the two of you. Masa didn't know what to say for a moment. Chapter 26, Grow. Engagement. Masa didn't expect that he would have a fiancé when he was so young, yet somehow, it was hard for him not to expect this. This was normal, he thought, especially when everyone knew how exceptional he was. Masa's genes were definitely sought after, and whoever married him, their descendants would inherit his powerful genes. More importantly, with how powerful, smart, talented, and handsome he was, many wanted to court him early. To be honest, when he was young, many families came to him, asking him to engage with their daughters, nieces, and others since having to get him meant that they could get involved in the Ishiki family and gain a powerful magician. Yet, of course, the Ishiki family couldn't agree to that, especially when they thought about how generous Masa was. Thinking how Masa would create magic for the family that he would be married to, they somehow couldn't accept it. Yes, they knew that it was petty of them, but Masa could only be for the Ishiki family. No one could steal him from them. This was what everyone within the family did. More importantly, Masa was about to go to Tokyo, a place where he would lack the supervision of his family. While they could believe in him, considering how reliable and mature he was still young and, more importantly, a virgin. While he might be okay with facing other trickery and deceits, what about a honey trap? Being seduced by a beautiful woman, could he stop himself? More importantly, many had seen how he was often so close with so many beautiful women, and somehow, they felt worried. So, this decision was made to engage Masa with Eri. The two were childhood sweethearts, and naturally, their feelings have been tested. Even if love might not bloom between them, it was possible for love to bloom later. As for the problem of being a cousin, it was all fine, and no one thought that it was a problem. Yet, while all the family had agreed, Masa and Eri, who knew nothing, were dumbfounded, and it was impossible for the two to accept everything so easily. More importantly, Masa's little sister, Iro Hiromi, was so shocked that she fell onto the ground, yet no one paid attention to her, and everyone had been staring at Masa and Eri. No, their gazes were always on Masa, who was their leader. From one of the weakest families in the 18 assistant houses to one of the strongest families, if there was no Masa, it was impossible for them to reach this stage. What's wrong, Masa? You don't want to be engaged to Eri? No one said anything, and only the voice of the Ishiki family's head, his uncle, was heard as he questioned Masa. Masa, who fell silent, also woke up and then looked at Eri, who was looking at him worriedly and with hesitation. Damn, what am I hesitating for? Masa was surprised, but he didn't hate the idea of being engaged to Eri. No, I am happy with her as my fiancée as I can imagine her as my future wife, but what about you, Eri? Are you okay with me? Feeling his eyes on her, Eri could feel his gentle yet determined eyes. Her heart was beating so fast as she was nervous, yet she was also happy, and the words that she wanted to say came out so naturally from her lips. Yes, please take care of me, Masa. Watching the cute girl who followed him all the time like a brat and then growing up into such a charming woman who was also his fiancée, Masa knew what he had to do. Holding her hands in his hands, Masa said, I will make you happy. Me too. I will make you happy, too. Eri couldn't control her emotions and hugged him tightly. Oh. As the two hugged each other, everyone cheered happily at the engagement of the two. Unlike Tatsuya, who was hated, Masa was loved, after all. Yet, Masa and Eri too ignored everyone, feeling each other warm as they clung to each other. However, Masa's uncle couldn't stay calm. Stop. Stop. Stop hugging. Wait till you grow up. However, even so, nothing could stop the enthusiasm of everyone in the Ishiki family. Yet, even if everyone was happy, one person couldn't, but with her awkward personality, she could only remain silent as she forced herself to smile, following the crowd, who was happy with the engagement of Masa and Eri. Nevertheless, Masa knew nothing about that, and he was quite busy for a while as everyone wanted to hug him and throw him to the sky. Lucky. This is what Masa truly felt when he was born into this family, and because of that, he was going to protect this family and make everyone stronger so that no one could threaten them. Not only a financial and political but also a military power. Masa knew that if others heard him, they would think that he was simply crazy, yet this warmth and love he didn't want to lose, and before someone tried to take it, he was going to make the first move since those with the initiative had always been the one with the advantages. At this moment, the world was still peaceful, but he knew once he entered high school, it would be a different matter. The tragedy that happened to most magician families wouldn't happen to him and his family, and he had made up his mind to protect everyone. As he thought so, he prepared to train all of his abilities, learning, and many others to improve himself. Knock. 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 The door of his room was knocked, but the person didn't immediately enter and waited for his answer quietly. Come in. Masanai-sama. Hiromi. Masa looked at his little sister, who had changed into her cute pajamas and held her treasured doll, which he had given her in the past. What's wrong? Do you want to sleep with me? He made a joke, but unexpectedly, she nodded shyly. Can I, Masanai-sama? How old are you again? Masa was speechless, causing Hiromi to lower her head in embarrassment, squeezing her tiny toes together nervously as she remained silent. Watching her reaction, he smiled softly and said, Sure, wait for a moment. I need to finish something. Hiromi's eyes shone brightly before she closed the door hurriedly and went to Masa's bed. In the past, they often slept together since their parents went to work, and he felt that she needed someone to take care of him, so as a sibling, their relationship was quite close. Probably, she was lonely, thinking about his leaving for the first high school. Still, Hiromi, who had entered Masa's bed, laid down and then turned, watching her older brother, who was typing on a keyboard with lightning speed. In the current world, such a method is simply old or might not be seen, especially when everyone has already accepted the convenience of visual pointers or neural assistants when they enter data into the computer. Yet, for Masa, whose physical ability was so amazing, using the keyboard was much faster, considering the visual pointers and neural assistants might not be able to match his thinking speed. Hiromi didn't bother Masa and just observed him, but fortunately, he didn't make her wait too long. Masa turned off his computer and light, then entered the bed as usual, even if his little sister was by his side. Let's sleep. While Hiromi's expression didn't change much, the happiness in her voice was clear, and when she saw the gentle smile on her older brother was so close, she felt her heart beating so fast. Yet, when she thought about what had happened earlier, she couldn't hide her gloomy thoughts until her head was patted softly. This touch was as gentle as ever, still similar to how she felt in the past, yet even so, she knew that she couldn't monopolize this touch any longer as Masa would marry someone else. Closing her eyes tightly, she tried to stop her tears, but she couldn't, and in the end, she just moved closer to him, burying her face closer to his chest. She was his little sister, and she knew that she shouldn't expect more than this, yet, her heart said otherwise since the more she stayed with him, the more greedy she became. Yet, for now, this is enough. That night, the two siblings returned to their past childhood, close and happy without thinking of many problems, yet, even so, they had grown up, and they had to part, especially when Masa had to go to Tokyo for his first high school entrance exam and to meet the protagonist of this world. Everything is pure, okay? Chapter 27, Light. So, he is in Tokyo now. Yes. But... Shiori looked at Eri with a complicated gaze and said helplessly, but I never thought the two of you would become a fiancé and a fiancée. Hearing those words from her best friend, Eri blushed shyly, but she didn't intend to hide this fact since it had already become a fact, and she even announced it to the magician community. Yes, he will be my future husband. Her voice was so gentle, and her eyes were filled with affection. When Shiori saw Eri, who was in this state, it was hard for her to stay calm, but fortunately, they had finished the entrance exam for the third high school. By the way, has he finished his entrance exam? While Shiori wasn't sure why, she tried to change the subject of their conversation, hoping for Eri to stop talking about her engagement with Masa. Not yet. Eri looked at her mobile terminal, seemingly waiting for Masa's email, but unfortunately, it might take him a while to send it. Still, she didn't want to bother him, especially when he should be busy with his entrance exam. As for her entrance exam? Well, it was easy, and she didn't think that she would fail. Eri also thought that Masa didn't have a problem with his entrance exam and wanted to hear his voice, but even so, she didn't want to bother him and waited for him patiently like a good wife. Shiori. Meanwhile, Masa had arrived in Tokyo for the first time and stayed in the hotel, which should be owned by his family. Yes, including the cybersecurity field, naturally, he also made the Ishiki family enter the real estate industry, including a hotel. Why? It was for her safety. After all, having their own hotel was safer than staying at a different place, right? The Ishiki family, who had many new magics due to Masa, wasn't weak, but even so, it was better to be prepared than be sorry. At the same time, due to Masa's stay in Tokyo, his family also prepared a new house for him, but the security system still needed to be installed. Still thinking of that new house, Masa wondered whether his family might be over-preparing since, instead of a house, he felt that the place his family had prepared for him was a fortress. Yet, for the future head of the Ishiki family, all of them thought it was nothing, or rather, such preparation was needed, especially for Masa, who would be everyone's future head of the family. Go all out instead of being sorry. Probably, this was the motto of the Ishiki family at this moment. Yet, inwardly, in this world, was there anyone who could even fight him? While Masa was busy with his entrance exam, he didn't forget to train all of his abilities, especially those that were gained from Masa One Piece. Masa of One Piece had devoured Machvice and Kizaru, but even so, he needed time to consume and develop the abilities he gained from the two. While Masa One Piece was on his way to learning all the necessary knowledge and started his beginning after his dangerous fight with Kizaru, Masa DxD also did his best to learn and improve the ability of Tun Tun no Mi. Tun Tun no Mi was a simple power, yet even so, it needed time to train. More importantly, as Masa DxD had a lot of experience with physical ability, there was no doubt that he was the most suitable person to train the Tun Tun no Mi. Meanwhile, Masa Mahuka wasn't lazy, instead, he worked hard to learn how to improve Pika Pika no Mi's ability. After getting the power of Pika Pika no Mi, besides manipulating light, Masa had been thinking about how to improve this ability further. In the original, the way Kizaru used the ability from the Pika Pika no Mi was pretty simple, which was just turning his body into a light, using his physical ability to attack someone with the speed of light or shoot a laser. Still, Masa didn't underestimate Kizaru and felt that such a way of using the Pika Pika no Mi was good. If there was something that Masa had to add, it was the fact that he could control the light to create a hologram, an optical illusion, by using the Pika Pika no Mi. This was probably the best way for him to improve the ability of Pika Pika no Mi, and as for the rest, it was enough to use the way Kizaru used this ability, as with the speed of light, how could chase after him? What about others? Frankly, there were a lot of possibilities for the Pika Pika no Mi since the light was everywhere, and it was also dangerous as he could even create a gamma ray, X-ray, microwave, and many others. To be honest, among all the Logia type of devil fruit, the Pika Pika no Mi could be said to be one of the most dangerous. Yet, there was a massive problem in developing such an ability. Radiation. Yes, whether it was a gamma ray, X-ray, microwave, or many others, all of them generated radiation. While Masa was immune, the environment wasn't, and if he really developed a magic that destroyed the environment, then he would be as good as gone. He also didn't like the idea of destroying the environment, considering how important it was for him and his family, especially in this country, Japan, where the usable land was so limited. Masa might say to leave the improvement of the Pika Pika no Mi to him, but then again, in reality, there was still a limit to what he could do. If I have a regrowth. If Masa had regrowth, Tatsuya's innate ability, which allowed Tatsuya to return everything to its previous, original state within 24 hours, he would develop all the possibilities of the Pika Pika no Mi. Unfortunately, he didn't have such an ability, so he could only improve the Pika Pika no Mi in the field of illusion, especially optical illusion. Oh, and a laser, too. If possible, Masa hoped for Masa One Piece to devour Bomu Bomu no Mi or Pamu Pamu no Mi the next time the next Masa appeared, so that way, the ability of the Pika Pika no Mi could grow stronger, but he knew that when the next Masa appeared, what everyone aimed for wouldn't be Bomu Bomu no Mi or Pamu Pamu no Mi, instead it would be a certain Zoan type of a devil fruit. Nevertheless, this was fine, too, Masa thought. Still, as he thought of how to develop his Pika Pika no Mi, he was already about to arrive at the first high school to start his entrance exam, and he could see many middle school students walking toward the same, seemingly also intending to join the entrance exam. Nevertheless, no one intended to talk to each other since everyone in this place was a rival, and no one wanted to fail to enter this prestigious high school. Still, even so, even if everyone was a rival, everyone couldn't help but look in the direction of Masa. Masa was wearing a face mask, hiding most of his features, but even so, his large body was impossible to ignore. While everyone's height was mostly less than 180 or even further below, his almost 190 centimeters was towering, and even though he appeared slim, everyone could feel the dense and powerful aura that came from Masa's body. It felt hard to breathe somehow when they were close to him, as if he was in existence above them. Yet even so, many of them wished to get close to him, especially when all of them saw his appearance and hoped to see his real face under that face mask. However, while the majority were attracted to his appearance, one girl stared at him in a daze due to how warm and bright he was. The Pika Pika no Mi had turned him into a human light. Instead of the powerful bioelectricity on his body, his light was more vibrant, and it might not be wrong to say that he was like the sun. Yet, even so, ordinary people and magicians might not notice this. However, it was different from this girl, who was particularly sensitive toward the light, and because of Masa's light, she just couldn't look away. Anoka, what's wrong? Her friend, who walked by her side, looked at the girl in confusion. Hey, remove your face mask. You can't enter the school with that. At the entrance of the first high school, such a conversation happened, and Masa, who was told to remove his face mask, did so and caused everything to be in silence. Yet, he ignored everyone's reaction and asked the school staff. Can I enter now? The staff, who was in a daze, quickly nodded. Ah, yes, please. Masa nodded, then entered the school casually, giving off a laid-back attitude, yet even so, many still couldn't wake up from their stupor from watching his face for the first time. Masa's charm, which had become 3 times better, was just so destructive, after all. Yet, Anoka's friend, Shizuka Kitayama, who followed her best friend's gaze, understood why her best friend had been in a daze and rooted in a place. Was this the beginning of the first love of the 2 girls? Spring, new encounters, and love. The weather might still within the winter, but even so, they couldn't help but imagine that spring had come, and all the girls who had seen Masa for the first time anticipated such a future, and they hoped to succeed in their entrance exams so that they could meet him. Chapter 28, The Difference. Winter was pretty cold, and the entrance exam also made everyone nervous, which made their bodies become even more frigid, yet even so, strangely enough, when they were close to Masa, all of them felt warm. Yet, Masa ignored all of them and wanted to finish his entrance exam as soon as possible. At the same time, he wondered whether the Shiba siblings were they in a different room? Masa thought so and felt a bit disappointed since he couldn't see the two famous siblings in the Mahuka. Tatsuya aside, Masa was curious at how beautiful Miyuki Shiba, the main heroine of this world, was, wondering whether she was really that beautiful. Still, while Masa was curious about Miyuki, the headmaster and many important staff of the first high school were watching him in the observation room after he entered the school. So, that's the blue beast. His body is overwhelming. Yet, even so, his control is so delicate. Masa's reputation was high, and the Ishiki family had never hidden his qualifications. Or rather, he was relatively loud, as if he were the leader and the hope of this family. That was what Masa intended it to be, but even if his reputation was loud, it was still limited, and more importantly, he wasn't a strategic type of a magician, so even if his reputation was loud, most people would dismiss him, thinking that the Ishiki family tried to exaggerate his reputation. It might seem weird, but instead of being feared, being underestimated was better after all. When someone underestimated him, instead of trying to take him down, they would just dismiss him and continue with their lives or try to improve themselves to show that they were better than him. On the other hand, Tatsuya's power was too exaggerated, and his existence instilled fear, which made many wish to take him down, causing his life to be far from being peaceful. Masa's life might not have been peaceful, but it was still within the limits of his tolerance. Still, with his loud reputation, when he had decided to enter the first high school, he attracted the attention of many, and many of them were curious about him, especially the headmaster and the staff, considering many of them thought he would be the third high school. So handsome. Some of them subconsciously murmured, which made the atmosphere turn strange all of a sudden. But principal, you really don't want to give him special treatment? Considering Masa's reputation, it shouldn't be weird for Masa to have special treatment by entering the first high school without an exam, yet even so, there was no such an offer, and he had to take the entrance exam like others. No. Momoyama Azuma, the principal of the first high school, shook his head softly and said, if he asks such a request, then I don't mind, but since he isn't, then he probably wishes to show his strength through a normal exam like others, and instead of having a special treatment, it might be better for him to take a normal exam like others as he can show all the new students what it means to face a powerful magician is. I think all of them will give up in despair when they see his power. No, I think that they won't think so since they know from the beginning to the end, there is no comparison between them. How negative. That's the truth, isn't it? But is he really that amazing? His feats in business, research, and also prowess during the invasion of the Sado is obvious to all. He is like a protagonist with a cheat. Ha ha ha, you are right. Nevertheless, all the staff were happy with Masa's intention to join the first high school, considering the graduation of the third year was near. The third year had been known as the exceptional, but the second year, there was nothing exceptional. While they were okay, they weren't that special, but if Masa decided to join the first high school, then it would be different, and the golden age of the first high school could be maintained. Be quiet. The exam is about to start. Yet, when they wanted to continue to discuss Masa, Momoyama quickly silenced them since the exam was about to start. All of them quickly shut their mouths and couldn't wait to see the result of Masa's exam. Meanwhile, Masa also felt the cameras were focused on him, but he didn't mind since it was normal for him to attract attention. Instead, his attention had been on the exam that was about to start. The exam was divided into two, one was a written test, and the other was a practical test. The first was the written test, and it was easy for him, especially since he had become 3 times smarter than before, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to get a perfect score or even further if that was possible. Still, compared to the written test, the practical test was even more important as it was a magic high school, so there was no doubt that the students were expected to show their talent ability with magic. To see whether one had a talent with magic or not, there were 3 factors that one needed to evaluate to determine whether one was an exceptional or a failure, and those factors were interference strength, capacity/scale of magic sequences, and processing power of magic. Yes, unlike an average magician story where the strength of the magician is determined by their magic power, in this world, those 3 factors above were the points to determine whether a magician was exceptional or not. Still, those points might appear weird, but let him explain those 3 points. The first is the interference strength, which is the strength of the magician to affect reality. The magician is a creature that changes reality, the phenomenon before them. If he gave an example, the simplest would be to create ice from nothing, even if the temperature was so hot. The stronger the interference strength, the better a magician was at performing their magic. It was like muscle strength, the stronger the muscle was, the stronger one could lift the weight. The interference strength was like that, the stronger it was, the stronger the magic that a magician could perform. Now, let's move on to the second point, which is the capacity/scale of magic sequences, which was pretty simple, and that was the ability to cast magic, and the higher the capacity a magician was, the stronger and more complicated a magician could perform, and if their capacity is lower, then one could only perform simple magic. However, if one's magician's interference magic was high, even if their capacity was low, then even simple magic could become strong and they could make the effect of other magic weak. Still, while the first and second points might be a little difficult to understand for some, the third point is easier to understand. The processing power of magic was the third factor in determining whether a magician was excellent or not. What does this factor mean? It is meant to speed up the process of performing one's magic. As for why this point was included, it was because the faster one performed their magic, the better it was, right? After all, those with a slow activation would be defeated before they could even do anything, so the faster one was, the stronger a magician was. For Masa, all of them were easy, and he didn't think that he would be defeated by anyone within those 3 points, including Tatsuya. Rather, even if Tatsuya was the strongest, his qualification as a magician, according to international standards, was horrible. Masa, on the other hand, was the best of the best, even if the standard for the future might change, since instead of only being able to use limited magic like Tatsuya, he could use everything. Still, as he listened to the teacher's explanation for the practical exam, Masa noticed someone was staring at him. While the others also looked at him, this one was different as her eyes were a bit different. Ah! The girl, who removed her glasses, somehow held her eyes in pain. What's wrong? The teacher was startled when someone suddenly screamed. However, the girl couldn't explain since her eyes were in so much pain after she was staring at Masa, and to be honest, she didn't want anyone to know the ability of her eyes. More importantly, she was at fault and panicked when she thought about how she might lose her qualification for the exam. Moreover, the pain in her eyes hadn't been subdued, and this pain made her want to cry. Still, suddenly, she felt a warm current that entered her body, making her eyes feel better. Are you fine? The girl, who had closed her eyes in pain, opened her eyes slowly, but someone closed her eyes, which made her panic. I have a magic that will block all magic that pry into myself, so don't use your eyes on me. Seal them again with your glasses. Oh. The girl was panicked, but somehow, this gentle voice made her follow his words subconsciously, and inwardly, she also felt guilty for using her special eyes. Now, you can open your eyes. Thank you very much. The girl opened her eyes, then blushed when she realized the young man that she had been watching and trying to observe with her special eyes was the one who helped her. Also, I am sorry. It's fine. Yet, even so, the girl felt that she needed to do something, especially when she knew that she had given a bad impression and did something rude to the young man. Still, she had to say, it was so hard to calm down, especially when this young man's handsome face was so close to her, making her heart race and stumble with words. However, Masa didn't care much since his bioelectricity magic made him able to block all the magic that tried to pry or probe him. Nevertheless, the reason why his reaction was relatively mild was that it was a cute girl who did this. If it was a man, then he wouldn't be so kind. Still, he felt that this girl was one of the heroines somehow, especially with how cute and how huge her bust was. However, as he had a fiancée, he needed to act like a gentleman instead of being a scumbag. Regardless, while the girl, Shibata Mizuki, wanted to apologize, the others, especially the teacher, had already taken over as they were amazed by Masa's ability. Hiromi Masa examinee, was that a healing magic? Yet. Amazing. That was my first time to see it. It felt so warm. Due to the commotion caused by Masa's healing magic, Mizuki lost her chance to talk and apologize properly to Masa, especially when his name was called to perform the practical test. As for the commotion caused by Mizuki, no one paid attention since everyone's eyes were on Masa, who was about to take his exam. All the eyes were on him, including a beautiful girl with short, bright red-orange hair, who appeared to be a lively girl, yet at this moment, the eyes of the girl appeared to be solemn since she could feel a sharp aura like a sword from Masa. Nevertheless, Masa just did his test, showing his difference from everyone else, especially in terms of his speed of processing the power of magic. 0.05 seconds. At that moment, everyone could only stay in a daze, staring at the difference between a mortal and a god. Chapter 29, First Meeting. I am finished, teacher. Ah, yes, you have finished. Thank you. Masa's voice awoke in the teacher, but the teacher quickly fell into a daze, watching the speed of Masa performing his magic. Similarly, all the examinees were dumbfounded before they all roared. 0.05 seconds. How is that even humanly possible? If I am not wrong, the reaction limit for a human is 0.1 second, right? Hey, wait a moment, that's a reaction time for one to move, right? But this is a time for him to perform his magic. Then, that means, his reaction time is much, much faster. After a moment of roaring, everyone fell into silence and then looked at Masa with a complicated gaze. All of them were young, and as they were born as a magician, many thought that they were special, thinking that they could change the world. Amongst the young, only 1 in 1,000 could become a magician, which showed how special they were, right? Yet, at this moment, all of them realized that in front of Masa, they were nothing. Wait a moment, what is his name again? Hiromi Masa, if I am not wrong. Why does this name appear familiar? Blue Beast. Wait, that Blue Beast. He is that Blue Beast. The famous young magician who stopped the invasion of Sato, the Blue Beast, Hiromi Masa. At this moment, all of them quietly accepted why there was a huge difference between them. Still, while many wanted to approach him, many hesitated, considering his extraordinary background and identity. More importantly, if they failed the entrance exam, what would happen? Still, somehow, after knowing Masa's identity, even if Masa's result for the practical exam was amazing, it didn't put pressure on all of them since, at this moment, all of them realized they were not at the same level. A human is like this, when they see someone too high and different, instead of being jealous, all they can feel is helplessness and acceptance that they are two different people. However, when Masa thought that he could have a quiet, peaceful time, someone approached him. Are you the Blue Beast? Usually, Masa would ignore someone unless they had a certain status within the society. He knew that this might appear like he was arrogant, but well, yes, he was a bit arrogant, yet at the same time, he just didn't want to waste his time. There were many things that he had to do in this life, especially when he wanted to help the other masses, so how could he waste his time on people who had no worth? Still, the person who approached him had a certain status, and Masa also felt that this was also a heroine, especially when her appearance was above many, and she had this lively yet strong aura like a swordsman, but then again, he could tell that her talent in magic wasn't that impressive. Masa didn't think to ignore her, but he didn't show much interest in her and just looked at the other examinees who were doing their practical exams with slightly sleepy eyes. Don't call me that. It's embarrassing to be called your nickname, right? If you are bored, how about you visit Chiba Dojo when you are in Tokyo? Masa then turned his gaze toward the girl for the first time. Now, you look at me, hey. The girl looked at Masa with a snort and said, is your status so high that you will look down on the mortal? Yup. Masa nodded. If your status doesn't match up with mine, it will be a waste of time for me. You are so arrogant. I have the right to be one. You are not wrong, though. The girl nodded and didn't hate his slightly arrogant attitude since it wasn't that unpleasant, considering Masa's status. She thought that he must have shared being approached by annoying people who just wanted to know him due to his status, so she didn't feel surprised by his attitude, considering she had a share of similar experience. My name is Chiba Erika. Nice to meet you. That Chiba. That Chiba. Main family? Branch? I am the daughter of the head. Now, you got my attention. Masa smiled as he met Erika's gaze and said, still, I thought that people of our age would disdain to use a family status and on the rebellion period. Then, you can see how exceptional I am, right? I don't shy away from using my family status, Erika said with a laugh, which caused him to laugh, too. Still, this laugh made Erika fall into a daze, thinking that this guy was too handsome, right? Or rather, when Masa smiled, it caused many to fall into a daze, showing how destructive his charm was. This was just 3 masses. What would happen if there were 4 or 5 or more? Masa dare not imagine. So, what do you think? Do you want to visit my family dojo after this exam? Let's do it later when we reach the high school. Masa looked at Erika softly and said, if you don't do well on this entrance exam, it will be embarrassing to meet me again, right? Oh, just wait then. I will be accepted in this high school. I will wait. Erika snorted and then walked away, but in her mind, she would definitely be accepted into first high school. Nevertheless, when Erika looked away, Masa looked at her back, watching how perky and tight her body was. Probably because she trained her body from childhood, her body is suppler and appears better than most. At the same time, Masa had to say that the quality of the heroines in this world was high. Or rather, he hadn't seen an ugly magician, and probably because originally they were genetically created, they appeared better than most, even if some had an ordinary face, no one was ugly, he thought. Still, Chiba, hey. Masa knew the Chiba family well, and they were part of the 100 families. The 10 major clans might be the strongest families with the most influence in the country, but even if Chiba was just part of the 100 families, a family magic that possessed numbers in their names and was just second only to the 10 major clans and 18 assistant houses. Chiba was part of the 100 family and was known as the Magic Swordman, renowned for using personal speed and weight magic in close quarters combat. The Chiba family's strength lay not in the fact they could adeptly use spells but in a new system they pioneered for the training and development of close combat magicians. Presently, of the magicians serving as policemen or infantry in the military, it was rumored that half of them were directly trained under the Chiba family's system. This was the case for the Navy and Air Force as well. Any unit that might encounter close combat situations often petitioned the Chiba family for training. If they were solely dependent on connections within active duty troops, the Chiba family's influence may eclipse that of the 10 master clans. Masa felt that becoming friends with Erika was a good thing, though he felt a bit helpless when he thought about his nickname. Blue Beast, hey? Well, it can't be helped. Due to the new trademark magic that Masa created for the Ishiki family, he also understood why he got this nickname. Nevertheless, let's talk about his nickname later since it was time for him to go back. While many wanted to talk to him, he didn't want to waste his time. When he was about to leave, his steps stopped as he saw the most beautiful woman that he had ever seen. She is so lovely, with perfectly symmetrical features, a slim body, and healthy curves that show her womanly qualities. Yet, one that attracted him the most was no doubt her skin and hair, which reminded him of snow and night. At the same time, Masa had to say this beauty wasn't that humanly possible, instead, it was as if her beauty was artificially sculpted. However, there was no doubt that whether they were female or male, all of them would say off you and become flustered in front of her presence due to how beautiful she was. So, this is Shiba Miyuki. Yet, while Masa was surprised for a moment, he quickly recovered and walked away. Still, he had to say, Tatsuya's face was so ordinary that it made him bored. Meanwhile, Shiba Miyuki was also stunned when she saw Masa for the first time, as she had never thought someone so handsome could exist. Still, watching him walk away after looking at her for a moment, she couldn't help but be in doubt and surprised as it was her first time to see someone react that way. Yet, the one that surprised her the most was the reaction of her older brother. Ani-sama. Tatsuya couldn't look away when he saw Masa for the first time. He thought that high school would be a boring place, yet when he saw Masa, he realized what a strong magician would be. Not only the body but the aura that emitted from him was too magical, which made him curious, and he used his elemental sight on Masa to identify him fully as he recognized Masa as an element of danger, which might endanger Miyuki. Only, he underestimated Masa too much, so when he used his elemental sight. Bzzzt. HNH. Tatsuya released a painful groan as he closed his eyes as he felt his eyes and brain being attacked by an electricity current. Ani-sama. Yet, Miyuki was in a panic when she saw Tatsuya's eyes were bleeding. I am fine. Calm down, Miyuki. Tatsuya quickly used his regrowth to recover since his eyes had turned blind, which shocked him, but his thoughts quickly stopped when he noticed Masa was staring at him. The two stared at each other for a moment, and Tatsuya rooted in place. He was ready to use his magic to fight as if he were facing a dangerous beast. Only Masa turned and walked away, causing Tatsuya to sigh in relief inwardly. Was it because of that person, Ani-sama? Miyuki was filled with anger somehow as she released her magical aura, which caused the temperature to lower dramatically and made the others panic. Calm down, Miyuki. It was all my fault to use my ability on him. Miyuki was at a loss for words when she heard Tatsuya admit his mistake. But that person is... There is nothing wrong. That young man should be him. Tatsuya quickly realized Masa's identity. The blue beast, Hiromi Masa. Yet, there was no doubt Masa's impression on Tatsuya was the worst of the worst. R30, the next destination. No, I don't think that you should devour Tatsuya. Yup, we're strong enough now, and more importantly, having him by your side is far easier than not, as he can attract the attention of others and make your life more peaceful. Well, that's true. After his entrance exam, Masa entered the space to talk about his experience with the other Masa, especially after Tatsuya used the elemental sight, which annoyed him. Yet, there was no doubt that Tatsuya's most troublesome ability was the elemental sight, as it could make him see anything. Fortunately, Masa, in the world of Mahaka, had always been prepared to protect himself, especially when one tried to pry or spy on him or his family, so he created magic to protect himself from such a situation. Frankly, this magic was just a simple bioelectricity barrier, but it could be used to protect him and the Ishiki family from mental manipulation-related and observation-related abilities. Probably due to this magic, the Ishiki family was the #1 nemesis of all the magicians that relied on illusion and mental-related magics. Still, Masa was annoyed, but it didn't matter since everything had passed, and he knew that Tatsuya was just curious about him, considering his status and all. If he had to say, Tatsuya's case was similar to Shibata Mizuki, who used her special eye, but unlike Mizuki, the cute girl, Tatsuya was a guy, after all, and he felt annoyed when a guy wanted to peek at him. It didn't matter if it was a girl, though. Nevertheless, let's put the problem aside. Masa knew that it was too hasty of him to devour Tatsuya. Tatsuya wasn't someone that Masa should devour. Why? Because Tatsuya's role was important to Masa, who wished to live a peaceful life. Tatsuya was different from Masa, after all, and he didn't mind getting into trouble, considering his lack of emotions. He had never thought much and charged forward like a bull. Moreover, his strength supported his reckless behavior. In other words, Tatsuya's role was akin to a scapegoat for Masa. As long as Tatsuya was around, all the troubles would come to Tatsuya instead of Masa. So, when Masa thought of that, he felt better somehow, and all of them talked about their experiences lately. Masa from the world of DxD was the same since his life had been quite peaceful. Masa from the Mahaka also had just finished his entrance exam, and he only needed to wait until the start of the story. Meanwhile, Masa from the world of One Piece also started his next plan to become stronger. After devouring Kizaru, it was impossible for Masa to stay in the Sayabati archipelago, and naturally, he wanted to leave that place, considering the bad memory. Or rather, he was afraid that he might go crazy if he stayed in that place any longer, so he left directly with Karina. Where was his destination? Water 7. 2x. Yup. That's a good target. You are going to get the CP9, right? Yes, Masa from the world of One Piece had been aiming for the CP9. While he had gotten Kizaru, the talent of the members of CP9 couldn't be underestimated, and he wished to devour Rob Lucci, considering his talent as the most talented agent in the 800 years of the world government. Rob Lucci might have been defeated by Luffy, and his devil fruit was just a normal Zoan-type devil fruit, but his talent was no doubt clear to all, especially in martial arts. Having to devour such a talent, it was obvious that it would boost the strength of the three of them further. Still. Have you thought about devouring Frankie? To be honest, I do. Masa from One Piece admitted that he was thinking of devouring Frankie since he had to say that Frankie was a genius at technology. But you should know our creed, right? Well, that's true. Let's have a bottom line. Being too cruel sometimes isn't good. The three of them nodded, thinking that even if they would devour others to become stronger, they wouldn't devour a good person. Yes, they knew that this might seem like a naive thought since, for power, they shouldn't do everything, even if the method was evil. Yet, somehow, they felt like they should have something akin to a limiter, something that they shouldn't break no matter what unless it was necessary, such as when those so-called good people tried to harm them. If that happened, then there was no need for them to hesitate. Moreover, instead of Frankie, I think that I might as well devour Vegapunk, considering how strange this guy is. That's a good choice. His brain is good and all, but this guy is too stupid and emotional somehow. Frankly, all three Masa never thought much about why the smartest man in the world of One Piece would do something stupid of being obsessed with history instead of doing his best to improve the life of everyone. Instead of the past history that had begun and been destroyed, why shouldn't everyone look at the future? Or rather, why was everyone in the world of One Piece obsessed with history? Learning from history so the same mistake won't happen once again. Many might think so, but all three Masa didn't think so, since when something happened, nothing could stop it, even if everyone had read the history. Even Nico Robin knew that to learn the lost history was bad and would make her targeted and killed like her parents and those archaeologists in the O'Hara, yet even so, she still tried to learn it as if she wanted to commit suicide. So, all three Masa had never shown an interest in the lost history or reached the last island, laughed Tail. Instead, what they wanted to do was to improve themselves, since their only strength was what they believed. The weak could only succumb, and the strong could do whatever they wanted, including protecting what they loved. So, at this moment, let's return to Masa and the world of One Piece once again. Oh, before that, Masa from Mahuka said, I almost forgot to say that I am engaged now. 2x. Say that in the beginning. 2x. Nevertheless, the two Masas said, anyway, congratulations. Thank you. After that talk, Masa from One Piece looked at Karina, who was standing beside him. After his long battle with Kizaru and devouring him, Masa was discovered by Karina, who had been waiting for him even though she might face danger by staying at the Sayabadi archipelago. Still, thinking of her act, Masa had to say this woman was stupidly cute. This woman often said that all the people in this world were stupid and she could fool all of them, yet even so, she did something stupid by staying and waiting for him even if she might be targeted by Marines. Regardless, even if Masa was still weak after using most of his energy, it didn't mean that he was powerless. The convenience that came from having Jake no Mi was obvious, especially since he could enter anyone's body, using the person as his jacket and taking over control of their bodies. The strong might resist him, but he just wanted to run away so he could target the weak, and the weak had no power to resist him. So, whether it was Masa or Karina, the two were able to run away smoothly, yet before that, the two of them decided to steal all the wealth in the Sayabadi archipelago as no one was around. Yes, even if there was a danger before them, considering Masa had killed Kizaru and might even be targeted by the entire Marines due to his act, the two never forgot about the money. Give me 80% of your total wealth to recover my broken heart. Still, Karina was as greedy for money as ever. Rolling his eyes, frankly, Masa didn't care about money that much, but having more money was more convenient, and he didn't really mind giving 80% of his wealth, since even having 20% of his wealth still gave him a life of luxury. More importantly, he was more interested in strength than money. Still, Karina's mood had become so much better when she looked at all the money that Masa had collected, and she even stayed inside his body, rolling around her body and swimming in the pool of money naked, which made him speechless. So, where are we going now? Even if her body was naked, showing her sensitive parts, Karina didn't care much since he had seen everything of her now, so why should she be embarrassed? More importantly, she was inside him, so no one except him could see her. We're going to the Water 7. Oh? We're going to make a ship. The Water 7 is a famous island for its shipbuilding technology. For Masa, who wishes to go to the Water 7, Karina thinks that he wants to make a ship. Well, we got a treasure tree atom, so it would be wasteful if we didn't use it. Treasure tree atom is a type of tree whose wood is considered the strongest, highest quality wood in the world. Its immense rarity makes it highly valuable, being considered a great treasure. After taking all the wealth in the Sayabadi archipelago, Masa was probably lucky, he discovered this type of wood and thought to make his own ship. While he was more into a metal type of a guy, there was no such a ship at all in this world, which made him wonder why many sci-fi-like items were developed, yet there was no metal ship, which made him speechless. Still, if there was a reason why most ships were made from wood, Masa could only say that it was all due to limited resources in this world. The world was about to sink, and many islands had already sunk, so because of that, the world lacked resources. Nevertheless, Masa, who owned the Tun no Mi, thought that he should take an island or two, turn their weight to zero, and then make them float into the sky and live on the floating islands. However, as he was in the world of One Piece, it would be a shame if he didn't have a ship, right? Okay. Karina agreed, since she also didn't want to stay on the Sayabadi archipelago any longer, as this island brought her bad memories, yet there was no doubt she just didn't want to lose him anymore, and the thought of losing him once again scared her. Still, it was impossible for her to be frank about her feelings, and at the same time, she had to say, she was a bit excited about the thought of having their own ships. Moreover, I think in that place we can find you a devil fruit. Hey? You are going to get me a devil fruit? Surprised, Karina hurriedly asked, is it a Fuku Fuku no Mi? After Masa told her about the Fuku Fuku no Mi, this devil fruit had always been on her mind. No, it's a different devil fruit. What kind? Let it be a surprise for you. Tell me, Masa. Her voice was as sweet as a baby, hoping her man would tell her. No. I will wear that cheerleader costume for you. No. How stubborn. Be patient, okay? More importantly, I need to make sure that it is there or not since I am not that sure. Masa somehow hoped for the next Masa to appear, someone who could help him to remember all the important parts of the story since even if he had 3 Masas with him, there was still a limit to which he could remember, and to be honest, he hoped to know the update of the story of One Piece since when he was transmigrated into this world, the story of One Piece hadn't finished yet. Anyway, let's talk after we leave this island first since I believe more troublesome opponents might come. Okay. Hearing his words, Karina also lost her previous playful attitude and stayed in silence so Masa could focus on leaving this island as soon as possible. Nevertheless, their destination was already determined, which was Water 7. Yet, somehow, the place where they arrived was different from their imagination, but at the same time, the world was in panic since Kizaru, one of the admirals of the Marines, had passed away. Chapter 31, Avengers. Borsellino had died. The moment this news was known, everyone fell into silence before all of them said the same thing. Impossible. No one would believe it. No, no one wanted to believe that Kizaru or Borsellino would die. Sengoku, Tsuru, Akainu, Kyuzan, or even the famous marine hero Garp could die. Yes, any of them could die, yet no one would believe that Kizaru would die. Why? Because of the Pika Pika no Mi. While in terms of destructiveness, Kizaru couldn't be compared to Akainu, who had eaten the Magma no Mi, or Kyuzan, who ate the Hai no Mi, but in terms of speed, no one could match Kizaru, who had eaten the Pika Pika no Mi. By eating the Pika Pika no Mi, Kizaru became a human light, and naturally, his speed was as fast as that of light. So, if Kizaru planned to run away, no one could chase him. Even the 5 elders of the world government, or even I'm, the mysterious leader of the world government, no one could catch Kizaru if he really wanted to run away. So, when all of them heard that Kizaru had died, no one believed this news. Are you sure, Sengoku? You are not joking, right? Garp, who usually only stayed in Sengoku's office to mooch Sengoku's rice crackers or laugh, pretending to be a senile old man who was helpless by the crimes of his son and grandson, at this moment, had lost such an act and his expression was that of a solemnity. Yes. Yet, Sengoku didn't lie, and his expression was solemn and had a hint of murderous intent, completely angered by this fact. Kizaru's Vivre card had been completely burnt, and he had died. If Sengoku hadn't seen Kizaru's Vivre card being completely burnt, then he wouldn't have believed it, but as it had been burnt, he knew that Kizaru was as good as gone, which made him completely in disbelief and angered as he felt that someone or a certain group that was completely hidden, plotted something to take down the Marines. Then, why didn't the Marines on the Sayabati archipelago say anything? What was wrong with them? Everyone was angry by the uselessness of the Marines on the Sayabati archipelago, who they believed had been completely corrupted for taking the brides from all the criminals and wealthy people on that island. You can't blame them. Suddenly, Tsuru, the brain of the Marines, took the initiative to talk. Great Staff Officer. What do you mean by that? Yet, Akainu, one of the admirals of the Marines, couldn't completely calm down, and his anger was as fiery as his magma. Kizaru had just passed away, and you wanted to let go of those incompetent Marines. Is that what you want to say, Staff Officer Tsuru? While it might be strange, his relationship with Kizaru was quite good. They might not be close, but as they had been fighting together during their youth till they became an admiral, he couldn't let go of the fact that Kizaru had passed away. At this moment, Akainu just wanted to destroy the Sayabati archipelago along with everything in it to make an offering for the Sayabati archipelago. On the other hand, Kyuzan, the other admiral who followed a lazy justice, was in silence, which was weird since usually, he would be the opposite of Akainu, but at this moment, even if it was wrong and might cause many harms to the people, his feeling was the same as Akainu as he wished to kill the person or a group who killed Kizaru. After all, like Akainu, Kyuzan's relationship with Kizaru was that of a comrade, even if they weren't that close. Akainu, Kyuzan, and Kizaru might not be close, but even so, they had competed with each other till now, and they thought that they were equal to each other, so the fact that one of them died, how could they accept it? So, at this moment, they wished to catch or kill this perpetrator who had killed Kizaru. The others also felt the same way since all of them wanted to avenge Kizaru at that moment. So, if Tsuru wanted to stop them, then she would face all of their anger. After all, an admiral, the person with one of the highest positions in the Marines, had passed away, so would they just do nothing? So, when they die, then their death would be meaningless. How could they accept that? At this moment, all of them were filled with fury, and even if they had to fight, all of them would follow Akainu to go to the Sayabati archipelago to avenge Kizaru. No, that's not what I mean. Yet, facing the pressure that came from all directions, Tsuru was as calm as ever. Sengoku and Garp, who had been friends of Tsuru, also sighed in relief when they heard Tsuru's words. The three of them had been together, but even so, they also couldn't follow if Tsuru told them to stop. I just mean that we might need to resort to a buster call if it's necessary. Everyone. After all, no one expected that Tsuru would be so cruel, since if the buster call happened, then the Sayabati archipelago would be as good as gone. Don't be too hasty, Tsuru. Sengoku was also startled by Tsuru's decision and quickly calmed her down. The Sayabati archipelago is a necessary place for all of us, even the world government. Yes, the Sayabati archipelago was an important island for all of them since many of their supplies were bought from this island. Even the world government needed this place since it was so boring to stay at the Mary Gosa. No, if necessary, we have to do a buster call since this enemy is too dangerous. What do you mean, Tsuru? Do you mean the Marines can't handle them? Garp was confused. That's what I think, since this opponent is too cunning, and I believe that all the people, including Marines, have been controlled by our enemies. This individual or group might have someone with a devil fruit that allows them to control a group of people, so in that case, we are controlled, and we are as good as over. If possible, we have to kill this enemy before he, she, or they can do anything. Control. If it was before, they might not have taken this opponent seriously since they have Haki, but with Haki, they should have been able to shake off all the abilities of the devil fruit. However, if this person could kill Kizaru, then it would be a different matter since Kizaru was at his peak and one of the strongest among the Marines. For someone, or a group of people, to be able to kill Kizaru meant that they weren't weak. As for those people in the Sayabati archipelago, they felt that they might as well give up on them since no one knew whether this control had been let go or not. Akainu agreed with Tsuru's cruel method, and Kyuzan, while hesitant, also agreed since the Marines were under a great threat. If another admiral died, then it wouldn't be funny, especially when they knew that they couldn't hide this news, and by then, the deterrence and prestige that could make their enemies would be shaken. The power of deterrence and prestige of the Marines couldn't be lost no matter what, since if they lost it, then many Marines would lose their lives as they might be targeted by many. So, at this moment, even if they were cruel, they had to go all out, or else many Marines would die. Tsuru knew the solemnity of this news, and she knew that they had to kill this individual or group of people, especially with how cunning they were. If it was a normal pirate, they would brag that they had killed an admiral, showing how awesome they were. However, this person hid his identity, never showed his face, and was even extremely careful. For such an individual, Tsuru felt that the Marines had to completely erase this person, or else the world wouldn't be peaceful. At the same time, she thought the extermination of the lawless area and also the death of the world noble was a plot of a certain organization, which made her feel a danger that she had never felt before. Okay, let's do it. Sengoku, who hesitated before, also nodded firmly. Even if they had to destroy the Sayabati archipelago, they had to avenge Kizaru, or else the power deterrence of the Marines would be as good as gone. At the same time, this dangerous individual or group really couldn't stay alive no matter what. So, at this moment, all of them made their way to the Sayabati archipelago to avenge Kizaru. I have heard that Doflamingo is over there now. Really? Then, force him to support us. His devil fruit is of great use to us, especially to trap our opponent, or rather, tell him to use his awakening devil fruit now, or else we will destroy him. Tsuru never hesitated when she made up her mind, and she would use everything to erase the threat to the Marines. Yes, Doflamingo, who just wanted to avenge his family, Mokvice, was also stunned when he was forced to use his awakening of devil fruit after he just arrived in the Sayabati archipelago. Or rather, he was too late to run away after knowing the death of Kizaru. After all, he knew his power well, and he wasn't so arrogant that he could do everything, especially after his defeat against one of the 4 emperors. Yet, it was too late, and he couldn't run away after he was surrounded by marines. Hey? You want me to use the Torai Kago, birdcage, on the Sayabati archipelago? Even though the marines didn't say anything clearly, Doflamingo knew this was a troublesome situation. Yes, the admiral said that we would destroy your home if you didn't follow our instructions. Doflamingo fell silent and tried to weigh up the risks and benefits. While this place was dangerous and using his technique might make him be targeted, he knew that if he didn't follow their words, then he would be as good as gone, especially with how serious they were. Yet, at the same time, he also didn't want to get into danger, especially when he knew nothing. However, if he left. After hesitating for a moment, Doflamingo used the awakening ability of his devil fruit. Torai Kago. At that moment, the entire Sayabati archipelago was fully enclosed by powerful, sharp strings that would cut anyone who would touch it. The entire population of the Sayabati archipelago was trapped by this technique, and they had no escape. There was nothing they could do since they were weak, and hopefully, the marines would leave after all of this. Still, the marines had gone all out, but unfortunately, when they arrived, they would find nothing since Masa had left this island for a more peaceful place. Chapter 32, Let There Be Light. Yes, whether it was Masa or Karina, the 2 of them weren't the types who were indecisive, and the 2 quickly ran away and planned their escape to Water 7. At the same time, Karina felt Masa's plan to build a ship was a good idea, so everything would be convenient. More importantly, if they stayed any longer, they would bring danger to all the people in the Sayabati archipelago. Even if Masa was merciless toward his enemy, Karina knew that he wasn't a bad guy, and if there was a reason why he stayed to face the admiral, it was because if he didn't stay, then all the people would bear the anger of the world noble. So, Masa had to stay, yet Karina didn't expect him to win, especially when his opponent was Kizaru, who was one of the strongest in the marines. Still, because of this, when they escaped to the ship, taking control of the noble who wanted to escape, Karina directly went all out and held him tightly, even letting him come inside her so many times. Whether it was the tension, fear, and many negative emotions that she felt previously were all gone, especially when Masa was inside her, holding her tightly and even fiercely, treating her like a place to vent. More. 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 Yet, even if he was fierce, she kept begging him, never asking him to stop since the dopamine and the pleasures she felt inside her womb made her forget about everything as if she were in euphoria. Ah, she was crazy about him. At that moment, she didn't care about anything, whether it was wealth, ambitions, or many others, and what she wanted was just to be held by him. Yet, how could he not be? Who did he kill the world noble and the admiral for? Facing all the powerful beings in the world, instead of running away and leaving her, Masa was ruthless and killed all of their enemies. Not a gentle and romantic white knight in the story who swooned anyone with his gentlemanly act, but a cruel black knight who would kill anyone for his loved one. Karina found him, and like him, who could face everything, she would give him her everything. Oh! Karina was so crazy that her eyes rolled, showing an unsightly yet lewd expression as she was being held by him. Watching her state, Masa was also a bit scared by himself since he had to say that he was quite cruel, yet probably because of his experience and how he hadn't fitted into this world yet, he needed a place to vent all of his stress. At the same time, this world was so boring. Yes, it was boring, he knew that this might seem weird, but in the modern world, there was manga, the internet, games, and many others. There were many forms of entertainment in the modern world, but it was different in this world, or rather, there was no such thing at all, so the way most people had fun was by either having sex, talking, or eating. Moreover, Karina's beautiful face and lewd body made it impossible for him to let go, so he had been holding after he robbed the ship of the nobles who wanted to run away from the island. If it was someone else, they might not dare to attack the ship of the nobles as they would have endless trouble behind them, but whether it was Masa or Karina, neither of them had such a fear, especially after what had happened. A noble? So what? Masa had killed a world noble and the admiral, after all. Oh, right, there is also a Den Mushi. Den Mushi, or transponder snail, was a unique animal that only existed in One Piece and was also one of the important animals in this world. After all, this was the only thing that allowed people to have long-distance communication. Communication. There was no doubt that it was an important factor in life, especially when many places were separated by a long distance and only by a ship that people could reach each other. Naturally, it would take a long time for one to reach the other by ship, so there was no doubt that Den Mushi was an important thing in life as it allowed people to talk no matter what the distance was. Yet, as for why he mentioned this animal, it was because of how magical this animal was. Not only could it be used as a telephone, but it could even be used for a video call, which showed how amazing it was. Still, there was no doubt that due to this ability, it could even be used for streaming, and sometimes, some famous singers would do a live streaming performance from it, which was the only entertainment in this world. Nevertheless, he let enjoy Karina's body first to calm himself, yet even if he wanted to enjoy more, he knew that Karina's body wasn't as strong as his, so she quickly fell asleep exhausted. He also didn't force himself on her since she was already at her limit. "You don't want to do more?" Karina asked as she tried to fight her sleepiness. "It's fine." Masa caressed her hair softly. "I want to take a rest. We have faced so many things, after all." Yet, watching his strong and firm thing, Karina sighed inwardly, feeling ashamed that she couldn't satisfy him, and for the first time, she hated her weak body. Still, as she watched him, she slept by her side, she didn't say anything, moving closer and leaning on him before she felt peaceful, as only by his side could she feel like this. Nevertheless, after a moment of rest, Masa tried his new ability of the Pika Pika no Mi that Masa had developed from the world of Mahuka. Unlike him, who was in the backward world, or Masa DXD, who was living in the magical world, Masa from Mahuka was a man of science, and there was no doubt that all the techniques that he had developed from Pika Pika no Mi were amazing, especially with his modern knowledge. Light. There was no doubt it was important. "Let there be light" was a phrase that came from Genesis 1:3 of the Torah, which showed how important it was, right? Without light, many things couldn't live, especially living beings, as many of them needed light to live. Yet, at the same time, in modern technology, light is also one of the most important things in developing future technology, especially in terms of communication. The future of communication is light. This was what Masa believed since, as the distance between two places became further, such as between galaxies, it was impossible and expensive to rely on cable for communication. Instead, it was faster and cheaper to use light for communication, especially if one wanted to explore space. It was said that to reach Mars, one would need to spend roughly 26 months on a journey. If one needed to use a cable for communication, then all of the people in space would die first before even being able to tell what they discovered in space, as no one knew how many thousands of years it took for one to build a cable that could connect within a solar system. So, a light was used, which was like how a certain billionaire would send thousands of satellites that orbit the Earth in low Earth orbit, LEO, to provide low-cost internet to remote areas instead of making a cable that connected one place to another. So, why did he mention this? It was because of the new ability that was developed from a Pika Pika no Mi by using the radio waves, which was one of the forms of light. At the same time, he also developed an optical communication technique using the Pika Pika no Mi, as having more options to communicate was more convenient, right? Like Enel, who could use the Goro Goro no Mi to read electric signals from afar, which made his sphere of perception span the whole country, thus, he gained a radar-like awareness of all the happenings in Skypiea while extending his attack range massively. Enel would surveil Skypieans and listen in on what they were saying so that, should he hear disparaging conversations. Masa could also do the same due to the optical communication and radio wave, which was part of light. Still, his power was more convenient as he could even create a hologram screen, which allowed him to sort out all of the information he gained like a computer. Still, because of this, he hoped that the plan of Masa from Mahuka to create the Ishiki network would work, so that way, he would have an AI-like existence within his head that could help him to do many things. After all, he had to say, it was so tiring to use his mental computing ability. Nevertheless, as this plan needed to take time, he should focus and bear the exhaustion from this technique. Frankly, he was thinking of spying on the conversation of Marines to hear what they planned, so he could have a peaceful trip from their Den Mushi with his radio waves manipulation, and as expected, he could do it and discovered that the Marines had surrounded the Sayabadi archipelago, but fortunately, they didn't seem to intend to destroy this island. Instead, they carefully searched for his location, which made him laugh inwardly. Still, just in case, he communicated with the newspaper owners, telling them about the coming of Marines on the Sayabadi archipelago and the possible genocide of all the people on the island. Nevertheless, he had to say, it was kind of fun to learn many unique things about the world with this technique, yet somehow, strangely enough, as he searched around, he found a certain wave that connected him to a certain server. Wait, there is a server in this world. Masa felt strange, wondering who was so smart that he could create a data storage identical to cloud storage in this world. Still, as he had found this data storage, there was no way he could let it go, especially given how curious he was, so he connected to it and was dumbfounded. No way. Yet, how could he not be surprised? After all, the data storage he was connected to was the data storage of the smartest man in this world, Vegapunk. Dash. I haven't asked about this question before, but what do you think of the Mahaka arc? Well, it's only 9 chapters, so it is a bit short, but it is quite a lot, considering the word count, I think. Also, you guys sure have a lot of imagination for the OC type of devil fruit, but thank you for the comments. Chapter 33, Karina isn't naive. During their days on the ship, Masa and Karina spent a peaceful day, but a wild night since they were young, so they were full of energy and simply inseparable. I am afraid that I will get pregnant if this continues. Karina let out a helpless sigh as she rubbed her belly. While she didn't mind getting pregnant by his children, considering their situation and how unpeaceful their lives would be, it felt like having children gave him trouble, especially when she knew that they might encounter many problems. After all, like most mothers in various worlds, Karina wished for her children to grow up in a stable environment. Moreover, most parents didn't want their children to live a hard life like their childhood. Or rather, Karina didn't want her children to live to become a thief like her. Yet, when she thought about the condition of the people in this world, being a thief might be one of the best ways to live. You don't have to worry. I have a technique that allows me not to impregnate others, and to be honest, I am not ready to have children right now. Ugh. I feel conflicted to hear that. Do you want me to impregnate you? Do you mind if I want to get pregnant? Masa looked at Karina, who was staring at him silently with a solemn gaze, so he answered her with a firm gaze like a man. If you wish, then let's do it. I have been careful before, so no one knows that I do, so I am not a criminal, but then again, we won't stay on a single island for so long since there are many places that I want to visit. Karina smiled, then happily kissed him several times. Well, I am not ready, either. Let's do it later when we're a little older. Sure, but wash your mouth first before you kiss me. Just who made my mouth dirty, then? Karina snorted and threw a pillow on his body before she went to the bathroom to wash up, swinging her sexy hips lazily as she yawned, feeling slightly lethargic. Still, she couldn't help but stop and stare at the hologram screen that Masa had created and often showed. She hesitated, but she wasn't sure whether she should ask. Just ask if you want to ask. Masa, that's the ability. Yeah, it's Kizaru's ability, Pika Pika no Mi. I ate his devil fruit. Hey. Even if Karina had had her suspicions before, she couldn't help but feel surprised and then ask unsurely. Did you devour him? This is what she thought, thinking that Masa had the ability to become stronger by devouring others. If I can have that ability, then I am going to stay in the Marines, then devour Sengoku and everyone else. Karina had to say the words that came out from Masa's words were crazy. Who was Sengoku? This was the top of the Marines. Yet, Masa wanted to devour him? If she didn't know that Masa had defeated Kizaru, then she would think that this guy was crazy. I trapped Kizaru's body inside me and kept some fruits inside my body, too. When he died, his devil fruit would reincarnate inside my body. That was why I could use the power of the Pika Pika no Mi. I see. Karina thought this explanation was more believable, and at the same time, she thought that Masa was as smart as ever. After all, she knew how rare the devil fruit was and how expensive it was. More importantly, if the devil fruit user died, the devil fruit would reincarnate somewhere, in a place no one knew, but if Masa trapped the dead user inside his body, then the devil fruit would reincarnate inside his body. Amazing. However, can I eat 2 devil fruits too? Karina asked with shining eyes. Sure. Really? Yeah, your body will explode and die, though. Suddenly, Karina threw something toward him, but Masa dodged her with ease. Bastard. Karina was so angry at this moment, but then she asked, then, how could you eat 2 devil fruits? My body is probably special. I am not sure the reason, though, so when we finish in the Water 7, our next destination will be a place where I can learn medicine. Sure. Karina nodded and agreed with his idea since she was also quite curious about the secret of his body since it was so amazing. Moreover, this was too handsome, right? Karina felt that this guy was special, she thought. By the way, is there a criminal group or bad people on the Water 7? Not sure. Let's search for the information later when we have arrived. Okay. Karina knew that Masa only robbed bad people or a criminal group, sometimes a merchant group too, especially those that had harassed normal people. To be honest, she felt that Masa was a bit naive, but then again, she also agreed with his choice since what was the point of stealing a good person? In this carnivorous world, those good people had no money. It was simply meaningless. Still, she decided to wash her body first since her body was too sticky. Entering the bathroom, which was inside the master bedroom of the noble ship, she had to say that her life within the ship was luxurious, especially when she could enjoy warm, normal water. After all, the trip between islands usually took a long time, so clean, normal water was an important resource, yet for Masa, who could use the power of Pika Pika no Mi to do solar desalination, to use the power of light to convert saline water into fresh water that could be used for irrigation and human consumption. Probably, taking a bath with seawater might have some health benefits, but there was no doubt, no matter what, it was better to take a bath with normal water since it was neutral and it wouldn't irritate the skin in case there were injuries. But you know. Karina, who was about to enter the bathroom, looked at Masa with a smile and said, if possible, try to develop an ability with that Jake no Mi of yours to gain strength by devouring others, that way, you can become stronger. Masa looked at Karina, who said those words strangely. Stupid. Karina snorted, thinking that Masa would think that she was a naive woman who would leave him for having such a cruel ability, yet frankly, if possible, she wanted him to develop such an ability since the stronger he was, the better it was for him since that way, he could protect the two of them better, and she didn't want him to die, after all. Masa realized that he might have underestimated Karina's tolerance since, for her, he was the most important. I will try. Good. Karina nodded and entered the bathroom as she sang. Yes, she loved to sing, and whenever she had free time, she would often sing for him, and he would play some instruments. When we get our ship, let's have a music room. Hearing her song, Masa thought that if they hadn't met each other, Karina would have been a famous singer. Not as famous as a certain diva in the world of One Piece who would put everyone in the world of illusion with her devil fruit power, but her career was quite good as she was working in the ship of the world's richest man. World's richest man, hey. Compared to wealth, what was important was strength since if one didn't have strength in this world, they would die. Still, at this moment, as Karina went to take a bath, Masa continued to hack into Vegapunk's punk records since all the knowledge within this data storage was too delicious for him to let go. Chapter 34, Deep Research. Vegapunk. Masa had to say that this guy was amazing since Vegapunk's knowledge was 500 years ahead of all the people in this world. 500 years. This number was appropriate, he thought, since the current technology level of the world of One Piece was similar to the Age of Discovery, during which seafarers from a number of European countries explored, colonized, and conquered regions across the globe in his original world, or around the 17th century or so. On the other hand, Vegapunk's knowledge was probably quite a little ahead of those people in the world of Mahaka, which was the world of the future. Yes, this showed how buggy the head of the Vegapunk was since this guy could even create a nuclear reactor known as the Mother Flame during an age similar to an Age of Discovery. Still, how did he know all of that even though he hadn't read the story of One Piece until those chapters? If there was a reason, it was because he was able to hack into Vegapunk's punk records, which was the cloud storage, or library, as Vegapunk called it, where Vegapunk kept all of the knowledge that Vegapunk had researched. Yes, by using the power of Pika Pika no Mi, relying on the radio wave, optical communication, and his bioelectricity, Masa was able to hack into this important record of the smartest man in this world. More importantly, Masa's experience in the world of Mahaka also greatly helped him since this guy came from the sci-fi world and was also a master hacker. Lastly, had Vegapunk ever thought that someone could even hack into punk records? Rather, due to Vegapunk's good nature, there were no protections at all within punk records, the cloud storage of Vegapunk, and anyone could access it if they wished to. To be honest, there was no protection at all since Vegapunk wished to share all of his knowledge with everyone. Unfortunately, with the low IQ of the people in this world or limited knowledge, the only way for them to access this record was only 500 years later, and that probably could only be done by the smartest man in that era, too. Yet, Masa could access it without worry. Moreover, Vegapunk wouldn't be able to tell that Masa could have such access, especially when this man didn't even notice one of his clones betrayed him, then how could he even notice Masa, whose identity wasn't even known? At the same time, Masa felt that it was too wasteful to devour Vegapunk since he felt this guy was too useful. There was no need to devour Vegapunk, instead, Masa was thinking of controlling Vegapunk, having him become his private researcher so this smartest man could help him with research for various things. Moreover, it was possible for him to control people, especially with the power of Jake no Mi. Lastly, Vegapunk was weak, so it should have been easy for him to implant this plan. Then, was he going to meet Vegapunk in the Egghead, the island where this smartest man resided? No way. Masa didn't want the attention of the 5 elders, the Marines, and even I'm on him, especially when he wanted to live a peaceful life, at least for a moment. Moreover, if he was being targeted by all of them, then he would be as good as gone, especially when a certain pirate might come to target him in the name of the balance of the world and wait for the savior, the next pirate king, to come. So, what should he do? Using bioelectricity, Masa thought to control Vegapunk by using a connection from Punk Records, yet it isn't enough. Yes, Masa thought to use his bioelectricity ability to control Vegapunk from a distance, yet unfortunately, his bioelectricity wasn't enough, and bioelectricity wasn't as convenient as he thought it would be, especially when there was still a limit of voltage, and it was impossible for him to release 10 of millions of voltage at ease with just his bioelectricity. More importantly, it was quite hard to make a delicate control, especially with how far the distance between him and the Egghead was. If he wanted to improve, then the only way for him to do that was to devour Enel to get the Goro Goro Mi. Yet, when could he do it? At the same time, he was afraid that Enel would leave this world and go to space first since he knew that it might take a while for the next Masa to appear, and even if the next Masa appeared, the Goro Goro no Mi wasn't the one that he aimed to eat for his 4th devil fruit. Still, as he thought of a solution, Karina finished her bath and walked out of the bathroom completely naked. Her body was moist and flushed red from the warm water, and her beautiful body was completely exposed to him. Whether it was her shapely hips, her small waist, perfect size breasts with 2 beautiful pinkiness, which made him in a daze for a moment. Karina smiled and felt proud of her body, but then, she had to admit that she wasn't strong enough to face him due to how strong he was, which made her lament how weak she was. I am going to get food. Do you want some? Yet. Masa also quickly calmed himself and looked away from Karina since if he continued to look at her, he was afraid that he would push her. Okay. Karina nodded and asked, do you need something else? Get me a newspaper. I will get that. Karina was also curious about the new newspaper and what kind of news was going to be there, hoping to check the news about Kizaru since she knew that it was impossible for the Marines to hide the fact that Kizaru had passed away. Instead, sooner or later, the death of Kizaru would be known to the entire sea, and what was important was whether Masa's identity was known or not. After all, it was quite troublesome to become a criminal, but then again, even if Masa became one, it didn't matter since, with the power of Pika Pika no Mi, who could chase him? Moreover, if they escaped, she would enter his body and leave at the speed of light. Lastly, and the most important point, Masa could just use the power of Jake no Mi to control all the people around him, similar to all the people on this ship. The power of Jake no Mi was amazing, Karina thought, and if possible, she wanted to eat the Fuku no Mi since it was the advanced version of the Jake no Mi, but she decided to believe in him, as she wondered what kind of a devil fruit that Masa would recommend her to eat. Still, as Karina left to get the food and newspaper, Masa had been thinking about how to eat more devil fruits, even though there were only 3 of them. 3 was his limit, and frankly, as he had eaten the Jake no Mi, Tun no Mi, and Pika Pika no Mi and even developed many good abilities from all of those devil fruits, he felt hesitant to reset everything. If it had been before, Masa might not have minded dying, but now, he minded it, especially when dying wasn't a pleasant thing. Moreover, if he lost all of the power of his devil fruits, then, even if he could restore all of them, how long would it take? Still, as he couldn't find any solutions, he decided to read more of Vegapunk's research on Punk Records until suddenly his eyes widened. Lineage factor. It was the blueprint of life itself, present in all living organisms, or rather, this was DNA. At the same time, watching all the deep research about medicines, biology, and many others related to DNA, Masa thought that it might be possible for him to modify his body. If I can modify my body, then Suddenly, Masa thought of one figure that could help him to eat more than devil fruit. Blackbeard. As his eyes grew hot due to a certain possibility, he suddenly heard an explosion, and a red light exploded into the sky. What the heck is that? Dash. To be honest, I thought that the Mahaka arc wasn't that interesting since there weren't many people who commented, but I guessed that, considering the story, it must be hard to give comments. By the way, there are 28 advanced chapters now. Lastly, I have made up my mind for the 4th Masa, please look forward to this guy, but he will only appear after Masa DXD. Thanks. Chapter 35, Chaos. As Masa had devoured the Pika Pika no Mi, naturally, he was sensitive to the light, so when an unnatural red light suddenly happened in the sky, he felt something strange must be happening. However, soon, he shook his head since there was something that was important for him to do, and he could wait for Karina to return to ask what was happening since he knew that she was outside. Probably using an observation of Haki might be better since that way, Masa could see the outside, but he was too lazy, and he didn't feel any danger, so he just continued with his research, thinking about the possibility of modifying his body into a similar to Blackbeard's body. Blackbeard. There was no doubt that this was one of the most famous villains in the story of One Piece since, unlike any other human in this world, his body was special, and he could consume 2 devil fruits. While no one was sure why it could happen, Masa knew that Blackbeard's body was a chance for him to increase the number of devil fruits within his body. If he modified his body like Blackbeard with the help of other masses, then it would have been possible for him to devour 6 devil fruits. Why? Using his unique ability, he could eat 3 devil fruits as there were 3 masses, but if he modified his body similar to Blackbeard, then as there were 3 masses, it would be possible for him to eat 6 devil fruits. By then, it should be possible for him to devour Enel to get Goro Goro no Mi. Even if Masa had eaten the Pika Pika no Mi, he would never give up on devouring the Goro Goro no Mi since this Logia type of devil fruit was special. Or rather, Masa from Mahaka wished to get this devil fruit the most. Yet, Masa from the Mahaka never forced him to get this devil fruit since even if the 4th Masa appeared, the next devil fruit obviously wasn't the Goro Goro no Mi. However, now, there is no need to give up. I can get the Goro Goro no Mi. Moreover, it was impossible for him to eat one more, as there was a total of 6 devil fruits that he could devour if this plan was successful. Still, the problem was he wasn't sure whether he could meet Blackbeard or not. Let's be patient. Anyway, Blackbeard wouldn't die, so there was no need for Masa to be impatient. Moreover, even if Blackbeard succeeded with his plan to eat 2 devil fruits, Masa could use the Pika Pika no Mi to do an X-ray gaze, looking at the details of Blackbeard's body, and then use Life Return, Seimei Kaiken, the martial art that allowed him to have perfect control over every part of his body, including his cells and DNA, to change his body similar to Blackbeard's in a safe way. But let's be careful. At this moment, Masa knew that his focus should be learning all the knowledge possible to raise the possibility of him growing stronger, especially in medicine, biology, and other related problems. Still, as he was learning, the door opened so suddenly, and he saw that Karina appeared to be in a bad mood. What's wrong? Listen, Masa. Someone tried to trick me. Karina showed her grief and quickly hugged him tightly, crying, showing how sad she was. What happened? It was like this. Even if the maids entered and sent them their food, Karina started her story in grief as she hugged Masa's back tightly. Yet, when Masa heard Karina's story, his expression became weird. The story starts when Karina goes out to get the newspaper, but then, when she looks at the sea, she happens to see a barrel floating on the sea. She thought that it was a treasure, or even if it wasn't one, it was either food or wine, a vintage, which, if she was lucky, she could enjoy with Masa when they had a meal later. However, instead of a treasure or a vintage wine, when she opened the barrel, it was a red flare, which caused a bright red light in the sky. Damn it! Who is that bastard? Let's teach that guy a lesson. How could this bastard deceive the heart of an innocent woman like me? At that moment, Karina was completely annoyed, thinking at how her innocent heart was being deceived, thinking that she needed to teach the one who made the prank a lesson. Regardless, even if the two of them had tens of billions of bellies after they ransacked the entire wealth of the Sayabadi archipelago, except for lands and buildings, which were impossible to pick up, they took everything that they could. Still, for someone who had so much wealth yet still picked up a small barrel, thinking that it was a treasure, there was no doubt that her greed for money had no end, and even if the amount was small, money was money, it was innocent. So, Why shouldn't she pick up the barrel? Still, while she was a little ashamed of her act, considering how petty she was due to picking up a barrel on the sea, she thought that Masa would comfort her, but strangely enough, he appeared to be in silence, seemingly to be in deep thought. Did I cause you trouble? Somehow, this was the first thought that came up in her mind. Not only due to Masa's silence, she also started to think that it was weird of her to find a flare that suddenly exploded as soon as she opened it. If it was just a normal flare, then it was fine, thinking that it was something that fell from some ships, but this one exploded brightly as if wishing to mark its location. It was as if, this barrel was thrown into the sea deliberately by someone so it could know the location of its prey. It should be fine. Strangely enough, Masa was calm after he thought for a moment. Really? Is it going to be fine? Karina knew that she really had caused him trouble. It is. Masa nodded and said calmly, with all the trouble that we have gotten into, whether it was the world noble or admiral, will there be anything bigger than that? If you say it that way. If there was a bigger problem than the world noble or marines, it would either be targeted by the 4 emperors of the pirates or the world government, but considering their location, which was near the World 7 and the Marines' headquarters, she felt that neither of those groups would trouble them. If so, then it would be just a small group of criminals, or pirates, which wasn't something that could do anything to Masa. Well, the Marines might be dangerous, but would a Marine throw a barrel into the sea that would shoot off a red flare? At this moment, Karina sighed in relief, but even so, she lay on Masa's lap, feeling relief that he was by her side. By the way, where is the newspaper? Oh, here. Look at the headlines. What's wrong? Just read. You will be surprised. Or rather, you are amazing. While Karina kissed his cheek, Masa started to read World Economics, which was the most popular newspaper in the world. He saw the headlines in this newspaper, which made him nod. Who? The title was simple, only a single word, but it had so much impact, especially when the news below told about the death of Kizaru, one of the admirals of the Marines. Yes, the Marines couldn't hide the fact of Kizaru's death, especially when everyone wished to mourn over his death. Kizaru might appear lazy, but even so, he was a respectable Marine who had many people who worshipped him since the number of people who followed him, being his fans, or being saved by him wasn't low, so the moment he passed away, it was impossible for a ceremony not to happen. At the same time, Sengoku, the fleet admiral of the Marines, also made a vow that he would bring down this criminal who had killed Kizaru. No matter who you are, where you are, we, the Marines, will chase you down until your death. Yet, even so, Masa and Karina snorted when they read this quote since no one knew about Masa's identity, so how could they even catch him? More importantly, with the ability of Jake no Mi to turn people into a jacket, which he could wear to disguise himself, was it even possible for someone to know his identity? Lastly, who made the trouble first? If no one provoked Masa, then would all of this happen? If those world nobles didn't exist? Karina was still disgusted and hated the world nobles since if it wasn't because of them, then would they even face this problem? Masa rubbed Karina's head softly and said, "It's fine. We will take all of their wealth in the future." Shishi. Karina laughed happily with her trademark laugh, and her eyes filled with an obsession when she looked at Masa. "You are crazy. But I like it. Let's do it. Or rather, how about you become an admiral or just turn a world noble into your jacket so we can steal the world government's treasure? How about we just steal the world government itself?" At this moment, suddenly, Karina had an ambition, but of course, their lives were even more important, and she wouldn't do anything that put them in danger. Nevertheless, Masa felt weird when he heard Karina's words, but then he shook his head softly and said speechlessly, "Let's do it slowly. My power isn't enough. Yet, let's take it easy first." The two of them had faced many things, so at this moment, it was time for a break, and I waited for him to become much stronger, at least, he should be strong enough to face the Marines. However, when the two looked at each other, their expressions became weird. "Aren't you strong enough now?" "You are right." Chapter 36, The Wheel of Fate. This is impossible, right? I don't believe it. There is no way this news is true. Ha ha ha. What good news. Guys, let's go on a rampage. The Marines are at their weakest. That's great. Let's attack more cities. Let's get more money. I just hope that nothing big is happening. As the news of Kizaru was heard by the entire sea through the newspaper, everyone had their own reactions. Those who just wanted to have a peaceful life felt worried and fearful, thinking that the Marines had become weaker and they might not be able to protect their safety from the cruelty of pirates. Those who were evil, especially pirates, were happy with the death of one of the admirals, thinking that they would have more freedom and be able to rob more people as the Marines had grown weaker with the loss of one of the admirals. Yes, many had their own reactions, but those were just small people who couldn't decide on the development and how this world's future would be. Instead, all they could do was just wait for the response of the strong and how they would tackle this situation where the limb of one of the strongest organizations in the world was torn apart. Mama mama. One famous and powerful female pirate laughed happily as she read the news of the death of Kizaru. It's a good thing. The Marines have become weaker now. Mama, should we attack the Marines? All of her children thought that it was their turn to attack the Marines, especially in the New World, which was the place where they dominated. Mama, it's good that you are all excited, but it's almost time for the party. If it was her usual self, she might not be able to make such a clear judgment, but during this rare moment, her head was clear, and she knew that even if Kizaru had passed away, the Marines hadn't become so weak that they could be taken down by her pirate group. So, at this moment, Big Mom or Charlotte Linlin decided not to do anything. Yet, within the New World, Big Mom wasn't the only one of the big pirates who were included within the group of the strongest known as Four Emperors. While Linlin might focus on her party, one of the members of the Four Emperors was full of excitement when Kizaru passed away. Wurororora. A large man who appeared similar to a monster laughed happily as he drank his alcohol. Boys, it's time for the war. Let's attack the nearby Marines group. Let's destroy everything. Let's start the big war. Kizaru had passed away, it was impossible for them to stay silent, instead, they had to take this advantage to bring more chaos to the world. As expected, Kaido is going to move. This isn't good. He will destroy the balance between us. We have to stop him. Yet, while some wished to destroy the Marines while they were at their weakest, a certain powerful pirate group only wished for the balance of the world until the legendary savior came to save the world. Yes, instead of relying on his own power, this powerful pirate relied on others as if he was just a helpless being who could do nothing except give his arm to a weak animal so a certain boy could change this world. In his mind, the time hadn't arrived, and he couldn't allow the world to be in chaos, yet at the same time, he was also in anger inwardly, thinking about this cowardly individual or group who hid themselves instead of proudly showing themselves what they did. Also, try to search for information on the killer of Kizaru. It was impossible for him to let go of the killer of Kizaru, as he wouldn't forgive anyone who destroyed the balance of the world until the dawn came to this world. Still, while the two strongest pirate groups in the New World were ready to fight each other, the last strongest pirate group was still at ease, resting on their ship lazily, either talking or drinking wine, but that moment disappeared when many of the members suddenly shouted in panic. Dad! It's big news! What's wrong? Why are you all so loud? Kizaru passed away. What? The strongest man in the world looked at his group of children, who appeared to be in a panic, yet when he looked at the news of the death of Kizaru, he was also dumbfounded since, similar to the Marines, he never thought that it was possible for Kizaru to pass away. Kizaru was the fastest man in the world, so how could one kill such a person? After all, even he, the strongest man in the world, couldn't kill Kizaru if they really fought each other. Dad, we should attack the Marines now. It's time for the ceremony for that bastard Kizaru. It's our chance. Yeah, it's a rare chance for us. Let's make a move, Dad. Yet, one young man appeared hesitant since even if he hated the Marines, a certain important person in his life was a member of this organization. However, he was a pirate, and he also understood the feelings of his comrades, who knew that it was a rare chance for them to make a move on the Marines. More importantly, if his father, who was also the leader of this pirate, made a move, then the Marines would be as good as gone. Facing the clamors and the excitement of the many, the largest man on the ship, who was also the father of everyone and the leader of this pirate group, never looked at the group of many. Instead, his eyes were on the young man, and he saw his worry, showing his favoritism with this young man instead of many and watching this young man's expression. Gururera. The man laughed as he drank happily. Let's just relax and enjoy the day. The weather is good. I want to get drunk today. Everyone fell silent when they heard their father's decision, but they only shrugged their shoulders and sighed since he had made his decision and no one thought to fight this decision. As for the thought that this man was afraid of the Marines? No one thought so since their father was the strongest man in the world. Nevertheless, the young man with freckles sighed in relief and looked toward the sea in the distance, wondering whether his younger brother had started to sail. At the same time, in the corner of the ship, a certain man whose presence was simply so low had a solemn expression on his face as he read the news. It won't be the user of the Yami Yami no Mi, right? If there was someone who could defeat Kizaru, the man could only think that it would be the user of the Yami Yami no Mi, as this was the only devil fruit that allowed to stop the movement of the Pika Pika no Mi. However, as the man fell into a rage and hesitation, someone suddenly shouted excitedly, "Dad, look, I found a devil fruit." The man fell silent, dumbfounded, before he sighed in relief, yet a cruel smile appeared on his face as he knew that it was time for him to move. Young master. In other countries, many people sighed in relief when they heard their leader's voice. Are you okay, young master? Everyone was worried about their young master as he went to the Sayabadi archipelago, where Kizaru was killed. While their young master was powerful, they knew that their young master wasn't Kizaru's opponent, and for someone who could kill Kizaru, they were afraid something might happen to their young master. Fortunately, their young master was okay. Phew, I am okay, but the sea will be more chaotic now. While Doflamingo couldn't avenge Mokvice, there was nothing he could do, especially when the person who killed his family might be the person who killed Kizaru. If it was in the past, he would chase this person till death, but now? Knowing the cruelty of the sea, Doflamingo knew his limit, and he knew that he shouldn't get involved in this problem and return to his country. On another sea, while everyone showed various reactions due to the death of Kizaru, a certain young man stood on the small ship, ready to start his adventure. Luffy, stop. Don't become a pirate. What should we explain to your grandfather if you go out now? You stupid boy. Come back. Everyone shouted with all of their might, but the young man just smiled brightly and shouted with all of his might, I am going to become the Pirate King. The wheel of fate had started to move, and the story was about to begin. However, Masa and Karina fell into silence as they saw the outside of their ship. Everything was covered in a fog so thick that it was impossible to tell whether it was night or noon. Or, rather, the noon quickly turned into night as this fog covered everything. At this moment, Karina looked at Masa with tears on her face and asked sadly, knowing that they had encountered another trouble, we're going to be okay, right, Masa? Masa. Chapter 37, Ghosts Don't Exist, right? Florian Triangle. Whether it was Masa or Karina, neither of them was stupid, and they knew that they had entered this cursed place. To reach Water 7, they had to pass the stretch of sea that must be sailed through to travel, but this sea was notorious for the many ships that mysteriously went missing within it. Usually, one wouldn't encounter this sea, but it seemed they were unlucky as they entered this sea. No, it should be said because of Karina, they entered this sea. Masa let out a helpless sigh, then lay lazily on the bed. Are you going to sleep now? Karina was speechless by Masa's reaction, but at the same time, she also sighed in relief due to his calm reaction. No, I am just waiting. Waiting. Yet. For what? Ships. Ships. There are many ships that have gotten lost here, right? There should be many treasures here. Karina's eyes quickly turned into a belly symbol, then suddenly nodded excitedly. I see. It seems my luck is good. To be honest, she had been depressed, thinking that she had bad luck, but it seemed her luck was as good as ever. Masa rolled his eyes, but at the same time, he had to say this fog was weird since it disrupted his light path and radio waves, which annoyed him. Fortunately, his bioelectricity ability worked well, and he could read the electro waves, so he could still detect the magnetic field of the Water 7, so even if they were covered in the thick fog, he knew where they should go. Nevertheless, in the distance, he noticed large entities that dwarfed anything he had seen with somehow menacing red eyes. Let's just ignore them. Yup, Masa was too lazy to get involved in the trouble of this world, and at this moment, he just planned to search for treasures for a bit, then went to the Water 7 to make their ship. Still, he went outside so he could better navigate the ship better, which made Karina follow him. After all, unlike Masa, who was calm, Karina had to say that she was a bit scared. Yet, how could she not be, especially with how gloomy and horror their surroundings were? To be honest, all the people on the ship were frightened, and if Masa didn't control all of them, then they wouldn't be able to control themselves, considering how famous the Florian Triangle was. Those who entered this place wouldn't be able to escape and would be trapped within this sea forever and ever, then die on this lonely and dark sea like all of those people who entered this sea. Yet, Masa, who had gained the knowledge of the navigation from punk records, knew what to do, but then, he had to say, the navigation knowledge was quite limited as this wasn't the focus of Vegapunk's research. Instead, if he wanted to gain complete knowledge of weather and navigation, then he could only go to the weatheria in the future. Masa. Do you think ghosts exist? Masa turned his head and looked at Karina, who clung to him tightly as she asked that question nervously. He blinked his eyes for a moment and murmured, "Ghost, hey." To be honest, he wasn't sure, but probably, it existed. In the world of DxD, while it might be strange, the existence of a ghost was quite limited, or rather, as a devil, Masa DxD, who had been living in the underworld all the time, had never seen a ghost at all. What Masa saw were just souls of humans who entered an inferno or hell in the underworld instead of a ghost. Rather, all the humans who had died would become souls and then enter their respective afterlives based on the beliefs that they had in their lives. If one believed in Christianity, one would either enter heaven or hell. If one believed in Buddhism, one would enter the Pure Land. If one believed in Shinto, one would enter the Yomi. Well, there were a lot of them in the world of DxD, as it was the world with mythology as the main focus. As for the world of One Piece or Mahuka, neither he nor Masa of Mahuka were sure. Nevertheless, if it was in the world of One Piece, he said, it should exist. Hey? Really? Not only Karina but also those who listened to his words were dumbfounded as their bodies were shaking due to fear. Are you sure? You are not lying, right? Aren't you a man of science? You have been doing a lot of scientific research, yet you believe in such a fictional thing? Masa, you just want to scare me and make me hug you all the time, right? That's what you plan for, right? Masa, tell me you are lying. Karina knew that Masa had been learning various knowledge with the power of Pika Pika no Mi. Frankly, she couldn't understand what she had learned and how he could have learned all of his knowledge. Punk records, technology and many others. All the things that Masa had told him were so complicated. Unlike Nami, while the two of them were also thieves, their respective expertise was different. If Nami was a talented navigator, then Karina was simply a talented thief. While Karina knew about navigation, her wish to learn and talent in this area was limited, and she left mostly about this matter to Masa, especially when this man of hers was so smart. Oh, besides being good at stealing, she was also good at singing, though. Nevertheless, Karina didn't believe that someone as smart as him could believe in ghosts. This guy must have been thinking to scare her, so she clung to him when they slept later. Oh, you are so pervy, Masa. Karina looked at him with an expectant gaze as if she had seen all of Masa's ploys. Masa looked at Karina speechlessly and said calmly, it's not without a basis. What's your basis, then? Karina asked him nervously. In this world, there is a devil fruit known as a Horo Horo no Mi, a devil fruit, which allows the user to control ghosts and even turn into a ghost. If such a devil fruit exists, then don't you think the existence of ghosts exists? Then, what should we do? Can you even defeat a ghost? Karina and the others looked at him with pale expressions. An admiral aside, could Masa defeat a ghost? Did you forget what devil fruit I eat? Masa suddenly shone brightly, like a holy being that descended from heaven. I am the light. Everyone was in silence, and there was some urge within them to worship him. In this darkness, his being was simply a guide that brought everyone hope. If he was in another world, he could dress himself as a prophet. Heck, he could even become a god. Or, rather, he was a devil, an existence that deceived humans so they would do wrongdoing and make them worship a wrong being. Was his talent okay? Nevertheless, Masa really wondered whether he could defeat a ghost. In the world of DxD, he was a devil, after all. If he was an exorcist, an angel, or even a monk, it might be possible, but once again, he was a devil, so was it possible? He wasn't sure, but he believed he could beat the shit out of the ghost, he thought, probably. You are right. Karina hugged him tightly excitedly and said happily, by the way, keep the light on, okay? It makes me safer. Isn't it too bright? It's fine. Everything was too dark, and Karina felt safer if there was a light from Masa's body as he had become akin to a lighthouse that led all the sailors out from the darkest sea. Just as soon as they finished the conversation about the ghost, everyone was relieved due to Masa's light. Yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho ho. A voice was suddenly heard out of nowhere. Masa and Karina. Chapter 38, Force Before Peace. Going to deliver Bink's sake. What Masa heard was the famous Bink's sake song, which was a song usually sung by pirates, especially the old. As for how he could tell, well, he just could tell, that's it. Still, turning his head, he saw the source of the song and saw a gigantic old ship that was seemingly almost wrecked, and at the same time, he saw a single figure on the top of that ship, tall, standing straight, holding a broken cup of tea with nothing on it. Everyone was normal, and this person seemed to just sing in this dark sea so it wouldn't be lonely. If there was a single problem. Ghost. Karina hugged Masa tightly and screamed in fear. Masa, that's a ghost. Not only Karina but also the others were dumbfounded as they had never expected a ghost to appear. Everyone was filled with fear, and somehow all of them wanted to get close to Masa, but naturally, he just controlled all of them to move away and simply turned them into mindless dolls as it was too annoying for them to have emotions, which often caused to make a mess like this. If there was a reason why he didn't do this from the beginning, it was because he trained his power to control them all at once instead of controlling them all the time by using his bioelectricity to make them a loyal servant for him, but this time, he went all out and controlled them completely. Regardless, while everyone was panicking, Masa was calm as he stared at the skeletal figure, who just watched everyone calmly. He wondered what this character was thinking at this moment. Was this skeleton nervous that he just met many people for a decade? Nevertheless, it's not a ghost. Really? Yup. Masa nodded. Probably, this person ate a certain devil fruit that made his figure turn that way. Oh. I see. Hearing that rational explanation, Karina sighed in relief, and all the fears in her heart disappeared. What was left was just anger since she was being played. Also, why the heck did a skeleton like you stay on this sea? Couldn't you stay somewhere else? Masa, beat him up. Anyway, as usual, beat this guy up first, then talk later. Calm down, okay. Masa sighed, watching Karina, who was stuck on his back all the time, but he didn't plan to act gently and approached this figure carelessly, even if this was one of the famous crews within the protagonist pirate of this world. After all, no matter how fun and kind everyone in that famous pirate group was, in the end, they were pirates. What was the typical image of a pirate? It was clear, right? So. Masa stretched his hand toward the right and pointed one of his fingers at a distance. Suddenly, a ball of light formed within the tip of his finger. A large amount of energy was sent within this sphere, illuminating the entire dark sea brightly before Masa shot out a laser beam toward the distance. The dome-shaped gigantic explosion shook the sea, causing large waves to form everywhere, yet the shock that came from this destruction caused the skeleton figure's jaw to almost fall to the floor. Also, this bright light. The skeleton was scared. Still, due to this explosion, the giant waves spread everywhere, and some of them were so large that they might capsize the ship, but strangely enough, when they were about to move, they calmed down unnaturally as if they were pushed down by their own weights. Unlike Mach Weiss, while Masa from DxD wasn't a man of science, he had received knowledge from Masa from the world of Mahaka, and with the talent of the three of them, it didn't take a long time for him to develop the power of Tun no Mi, which made him even able to manipulate the mass, which was part of the weight, of a various object from a distance. More importantly, compared to the Jake no Mi or the Pika no Mi, there was no doubt that the development of the Tun no Mi was far simpler, especially when the core of weight was mass and gravity. The gravity part might be a little complicated as it was related to inertia and many other things, but the mass was just a density and volume, which made it easier for him to control. This thing was far from being simple, and it had many developments that many couldn't imagine instead of just falling from a high altitude and falling on the top of the target. Instead, it was the most wasteful way to use the Tun no Mi, and at the same time, he realized that his choice to eat this devil fruit was correct. At the same time, Masa somehow felt like he could create a feat of Tatsuya from the world of Mahaka as he had Tun no Mi and Pika no Mi. Still, he lacked the ability to disintegrate atoms. Yet, was there such an ability in this world? Masa thought for a moment and recalled the face of a weak, famous character that appeared in the beginning, yet somehow able to become one of the strongest in the world. Frankly, that ability was too wasteful in the hands of that clown. Yet let's forget that clown now since his focus was on the skeleton figure before him, Brook. One of the main crew members of the Straw Hat Pirates and the user of the Yomi Yomi no Mi. Yomi Yomi no Fruit. If Masa hadn't had the ability to save life, which allowed him to revive even if he died from his unique ability, he would definitely devour Brook, considering how powerful this ability was. Yomi Yomi no Mi, or Revive Fruit. This ability gave the user a powerful soul where they were able to revive themselves after death, and at the same time, the user would be able to develop all soul-based and death-based related techniques. Yet, there was no doubt that the ability to revive was the one that he sought the most. However, as he had his unique ability, there was no need for him to get this devil fruit. Masa from DxD was a devil, and in that world, there was an item known as Evil Peace, an item that allowed a living being to be revived as a devil. So, even if Yomi Yomi no Mi might be a good devil fruit, it wasn't the one he sought the most, especially when he had a limited number of devil fruits he could eat. Nevertheless, he looked at Brook and said calmly, "Can you come here?" "Ah, yes." Brook quickly said and quickly begged not to be killed. Still, Karina stared at Masa in silence since, while it was true that she had asked him to beat up Brook, she didn't mind telling him to cause a tsunami, okay? Yet, at the same time, she wondered how the power of light could subdue powerful waves. Well, he is smart. Yup, let's leave it that way. It was good that her man was strong, so there was no need to think too much, and she just let herself be protected like a princess by him, right? Nevertheless, on a certain gigantic ship within this Florian Triangle, a young woman with a cute appearance at this moment showed a weird expression as her eyes widened so wide that they almost popped out, her mouth was wide opened, and snots even came out from her nose as she happened to see the powerful light explosion that happened caused by someone within a ship. So, there was no need to hesitate, and she moved directly toward the captain of this pirate ship, shouting in panic, "Moria-sama, we're in danger." Chapter 39, A Pirate is a Pirate. Moria-sama. 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 The loud voice of the young woman echoed within the space and awoken those who were sleeping or busy with something else. While they were all speechless, they couldn't ignore her, especially with how doting their captain was toward this young woman, as if she were his own daughter. Still, as the young woman ran toward the room where her captain was eating, she also started to think about who the figure who had caused that explosion was. Light and explosion. There was only one figure that could wield such power. The young woman wasn't naive or stupid, and she knew many famous figures on the sea, so she quickly discovered the person who had caused that explosion. So, the moment the young woman entered the room, she shouted, "Moria-sama, Kizaru is about to come our ship." Yet, those words caused all the people inside to look at her silently with a speechless expression. "What's wrong, Perona? Are you still sleepy? How about you sleep more?" A gigantic fat man with a face like a devil, who was also the captain of this ship, Gecko Moria, looked at the young woman with a helpless expression before he continued to eat as if nothing had happened. He had been sleeping for a while, so he was quite hungry, and that was why the amount of food on the table was quite large. "Perona, you don't read the newspaper, right?" Another fat man, with an average height yet a strange get-up like an evil doctor, looked at the young woman, Perona, with a speechless expression. "What's wrong with the newspaper?" A young woman with long pink hair, which she tied in twin tails, giving her stability where she was being held, and a unique gothic Lolita style of fashion, which focused on making her cuter, looked at this evil doctor-like character, Hogback, with confusion. "Kizaru has passed away. It had been a while, you know? You really should read the newspaper, Perona. So, there is no way for Kizaru to appear. If he appears here, then he is a ghost." Only when the lion-like man with a powerful body, Absalom, finished his words did everyone fall into silence. Their place gave off a horror theme, and if a ghost really existed, then it could only be in this place. "It isn't a ghost, right?" Moria, Hogback, and Absalom fell into a strange silence. Still, Perona didn't care about Absalom's sarcasm and then became dumbfounded. Kizaru has passed away? Really? Then, what was that light about? Everyone on this ship, Thriller Bark, led by Moria, had their own roles. Moria was the captain, Hogback was the doctor, Absalom was the fighter, and Perona was in charge of scouting. Due to her eating the Horo Horo no Mi, Perona was able to create and manipulate ghosts or hollows. With those ghosts, she could link her consciousness and gather information about events occurring on Thriller Bark and even Florian Triangle, and that was why she could see the explosion caused by Masa. Ghost Network, this was what she called her technique, yet this wasn't the time for that, since if that person wasn't Kizaru, then who was that person? Did you really see a light explosion, Perona? Moria asked with concern. Of course, Moria-sama. Why did you think I would run away from my room to meet you immediately instead of using my ghost form? Moreover, I will never lie to Moria-sama. No one doubted Perona, yet there was no doubt they felt confused by her information. Light explosion, hey? But Kizaru has passed away. What if it's the new Pika Pika no Mi user? Hogback's voice suddenly sounded, which caused everyone to fall into silence. Everyone in this place was clear that if the user of the devil fruit was killed, the devil fruit would be reincarnated somewhere, so this possibility was clear, yet could the devil fruit appear so fast? Still, the possibility existed, but they needed to confirm it again. Are you sure that it is Pika Pika no Mi, Perona? Moria asked, unsure. In the past, he wouldn't have cared about his opponents, whether it was the Logia users, the Marines, the pirate emperors, or many powerful beings in the world, he would fight all of them and believe that he could become the pirate king, but now? After his defeat by a certain one of the pirate emperors, Moria had changed. Not only did he become weaker, but he also feared losing his comrades. In the past, he fought with many of his followers, and all of them trusted him much, but during his fight against this pirate emperor, all of his followers died, and he could only retreat, leaving all of his dead followers behind, and because of that, he had changed. Not only did he stay on the Grand Line, which was a safer sea, but he also chose zombies, which were created by using his devil fruit as followers instead of living beings, as he was afraid that he would lose them. Nevertheless, while Moria was never afraid of any challenges, the Logia user needed to be watched out for, especially when there was a possibility this person ate the Pika Pika no Mi, the devil fruit of the deceased Kizaru. Yes, Kizaru might have passed away, and Moria even laughed at his death, yet even so, he couldn't kill Kizaru, okay? Instead of fighting, Moria knew that he would be beaten to death. Still being asked this question, Perona fell into silence for a moment, thinking, then said unsurely, I just saw a bright light, then an explosion with my ghost before, so I couldn't say for sure. Bright light? Like what? A laser? Anyway, it is similar to Kizaru, Moria-sama. Moria thought for a moment and said, then, there might be a chance for it to be a Logia type, but there is also a possibility it might be a different devil fruit, such as heat or explosion-based devil fruits. There were many devil fruits, and even if Moria had lived for so long, it didn't mean he knew everything, and on the sea, anything was possible, so he couldn't say for sure about the person who could create an explosion. Can you check this person more? Is this person a pirate? First, let's get to know this person's information. Oh okay. But is it okay? Won't I get to find out? No one knows about you, so you will be okay. Except for Moria, his crew wasn't well known, or rather, whether it was Absalom, Hogback, or Perona, no one was within the bounty as they hardly did anything except follow Moria. Okay. Hearing Moria's confirmation, Perona decided to believe, but with her cowardly nature, she decided to be careful since this was a Logia-type devil fruit user, okay? Of course, she had to be careful. Watching the ship outside, she could tell that it was luxurious, and there was no pirate flag, so it shouldn't be a pirate. Instead, it was a noble. A noble. Yet. Perona continued to look around quietly within the ship, controlling her ghost until she discovered the most handsome man that she had ever seen. She was in a daze for a moment before she noticed an ugly skeleton that she had seen in the past, who was talking with that handsome young man. Her face was slightly flushed red, which made Moria, Hogback, and Absalom turn strange, but neither of them was handsome, so they didn't react much when they saw Perona's reaction, only thinking she was weird. Still, among all the people, Perona was sure that this handsome young man was the source of that light since she felt this man was so strong. Is he looking at me? Perona felt that the young man was staring at her, but it seemed, it was only her imagination. After all, her ability was that of a ghost. How could one notice a ghost unless she let it appear in front of everyone? Moria-sama, it should be a young noble. Young noble? Not a pirate. Yes. Do they have treasures? A lot of them. Perona didn't lie since she saw a lot of treasures within the ship, which made her greedy. Nevertheless, it was the same with Moria, Absalom, and Hogback. Neither of them needed money, but they were a pirate, and what did a pirate do? Naturally, it was to rob others. Kishishishishi. Moria laughed greedily, then said arrogantly, Pika Pika no me? So what? Let's teach this young man how cruel the sea is. Moreover, let's see which is stronger, shadow or light. Everyone also showed their greed, and their decision was obvious. The only problem was Masa such a weakling? Chapter 40, The Buffet starts. As Moria had made his decision, naturally, it was impossible for Perona to hide from Masa, and he knew that the ghost woman from the thriller bark had been spying on his ship, yet he didn't think too much of it, considering the danger of this adventure wasn't as dangerous as when he fought an admiral, and at the same time, he had to say, similar to Impel Down that he mentioned in the past, thriller bark, Moria's ship, was also a treasure trove in his eyes. Impel Down kept many famous criminals from all over the world, including the most dangerous ones, and thriller bark was the same as it kept many famous strong pirates that died. While those pirates might not be living but dying, yet even so, Masa felt that it was a good choice for him to go to the thriller bark, considering all the bodies that he could devour on that ship. It was like a buffet again, he thought. More importantly, since he was no longer eating the devil fruit as he had hit the limit, he could still try to improve in terms of physical ability, haki, sword skill, unique fighting styles, experiences and many other things from the corpses of those famous figures that Moria had collected. Still, if possible, he hoped for the next Masa to appear, especially one from the modern world, where he could read stories about where all Masa lived. Yes, this Masa might be weak as he came from the modern world, but this Masa could help them by telling them the plot and many vital pieces of information that all of them needed. After all, even if all of them were smart and their memories were good due to their combination of the three, there was still a limit, and it wasn't like they knew everything as they weren't omniscient. Moreover, as many of them hadn't reached the end of the story, or even many of the stories of the worlds where they were hadn't ended, this Masa from the modern world might be able to help them to update them with significant knowledge of the future. At the same time, he really wished to eat more devil fruit. Still, if the next Masa didn't appear, then there was nothing he could do, so he could only do his best, improving something else, especially fighting style, and there was no doubt that thriller bark was a good place for that. Did you listen to my story, Masa? I did. Masa nodded and said, you can continue, Brook. Hi-oh ho ho, very well. Let this grandpa, no, this old dead bones, tell you my past. Brook was happy to meet someone, many of them, even, but then again, when he saw Karina, as usual, he thought to say that she was beautiful and also said his usual trademark. By the way, that beautiful lady over there, can you let me see your panties? Ah, of course, Brook didn't dare say those words to Karina, especially when he could see how close she was to Masa. They were probably lovers, and he wasn't stupid enough to provoke a young man who had eaten Pika Pika no Mi, an ability that could erase him completely from this world as he was currently. Yet, even so, there were many beautiful maids around, so Brook didn't shy away, only. Why did it feel like those maids were like mindless dolls? More importantly, the way all of them stared at him silently like they were dead made her bones tremble. Or rather, his body was trembling due to fear. This young man is so scary. What's wrong, Brook? Is the tea not to your taste? And no. It tastes good, Masa. Thank you very much. Nevertheless, Brook's past was simple as he was just a pirate who went to the sea, then met many troubles from incurable diseases that robbed the lives of his captain, then was killed by the enemy pirates upon entering the Florian Triangle, then killed as he was affected by the enemy's poison weapon. But you are living now. I do, but I am all bones now. Hi-oh ho ho. Masa smiled and asked, so, did you eat a devil fruit? Zoan type skeleton form or something that allows you to revive from the death? He knew the truth, but he just asked anyway. Hi-oh ho ho, I did eat a devil fruit, but not a Zoan type of skeleton form, but I did eat Yomi Yomi no Mi, which allowed me to gain a second life after my death. Yomi Yomi no Mi. Hearing that expression, Karina's expression started to change, and it quickly turned into greed, thinking if Masa devoured this devil fruit, then he would be okay no matter what. Is it only me, or have your lover's eyes become scary, Masa? No, it's just your imagination. Masa rolled at Karina and just hugged her closely so she wouldn't do anything stupid. To be honest, Brook was scared. However, Brook didn't dare to run away. After all, Brook could tell that Masa was strong, so strong that it was his first time to see someone as strong as him during his life, but he died now. Should he say that after his death? By the way, what's wrong with your shadow? Did you lose your shadow after you gained a second life? Masa asked curiously, even though he knew the truth. Stunned, Karina lowered her head and saw that Brook had no shadow. Masa, he really isn't a ghost, right? Hi-oh-ho, you don't have to worry, young lady. I am really not a ghost, but I am a bone. Living dead bones. Karina didn't bother to talk with Brook. But I lost my shadow to a certain someone. Brook's voice was a little low when he said those words. Can you tell us more about that? Maybe I can help you. Ah. Brook looked at Masa in surprise, then felt moved, realizing that he was wrong. This young man was scared, but then again, as he had many that he had to protect, wasn't it natural for him to be cautious, especially when Brook had told all of them that he was a pirate. Brook might have died before and might have retired as he was all bones at this moment, but he was a pirate before, after all. So, wasn't it normal for Masa to be cautious? Yet, somehow, after that talk and confirming that Brook was okay, Masa offered him help. However, how could he let this young man be in danger due to him? While Brook didn't have any skin or muscle, it was clear that he was smiling. You don't have to worry. Instead of thinking of my problem, you should continue your trip with your lover. You two are young, right? Instead of thinking of an old bone like me, you should be lovey-dovey and make children. While he was frightened by Masa, he knew that Masa was quite chill as long as he wasn't that rude, so he tried to tease them, telling them to continue with their honeymoon. Yes, this was the best, but... Masa pointed his finger upward, and a bright light radiated from its tip. Tell me. Ah, yes. Also, no lights, please. I am going to die. I am going to die, Masa. Brook was obedient. Also, Brook. Let me know as soon as possible since we're already targeted. Suddenly, the ship was shaking, and on the outside, a mouth-shaped gate was closed, seemingly trying to trap them, and at the same time, they could see the largest ship that they had ever seen. Thriller bark. They had arrived on this horror-like ship. Still, while everyone was fearful, Masa licked his lips since the buffet had started. Dash. There are going to be a lot of things here.
Thanks for listening.